Hello and welcome to Sebring for the fourth round of the Contender Series in 2025. No, it's the fifth round, sorry. I forgot we had Monza last week. That was the fourth round, of course. My name is Edward Hunter. I'm here next to Ollie Shakespeare, of course, who's going to be joining me in the commentary box for this round at Sebring in California, of course. A legendary endurance racing track as Jerome Marchand testing the track limits out of Sunset Bend, the final corner, and bumping into the wall there, which is going to probably quite severely damage the steering on that Toyota Hypercar. But anyway, this is a really fantastic venue, Ollie. Last time we were here in the Pro Series, it was of course rained midway through the race. We're expecting it to be a little more dry this time. So after all the rain shenanigans in Monza, should be a nice change of pace here. Certainly, some of the drivers who were really unlucky in Monza, like Tobias Blumschein, will be hoping for a better weather and a more straightforward race this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd suggest that, that after the chaos in the Pro Series race, these contender guys will not be feeling too sorry about not having rain here at Sebring. That race really had it all, didn't it, in the Pro Series? Thrills, spills, and everything in between. So I'm sure these guys in the Contender Series won't be too fussed to see a clear radar heading their way.
Yep, so at midpoint, this is our first endurance round, not anywhere near as long as the 2 hours, 40 minutes in the Pro Series. In Contender, the endurance rounds are 100 minutes, so that's about an hour and 20 minutes, isn't it? Oh no, hour and 40, sorry. I took 20 minutes off the race distance there. But now, before qualifying starts, might be a good time to briefly check the state of play in the championship standings. Of course, this is with a one drop score applied of the 3 rounds so far. You see here in Hypercar, Mikolaj Hytrishky, who has won all 3 races so far in Hypercar. He's been absolutely dominant, and it's been very difficult for anybody to get anywhere near him come the checkered flag. 50 points to his name. He's also got another 25 in the bank from last week. He's basically having to drop his worst result, but all of them are wins, so he is in a very good position. Paul Lepere is second with 33 points. He's having to drop. He's got a second last time out and a third in the first 2 rounds. Then we've got Tobias Blumschein, who was of course on pole brilliantly for Monza, but then panicked when he saw that it was still wet again for the start of the race. Tried to switch to wet tyres and didn't quite get back in the game before the grid set off again. So it was really I think he put his hands up and said it was his fault, but it led to a sort of spiral of bad decisions and bad luck that left him down in 12th, but he's still got a second and a fourth to his name on 30 points. A similar situation for Walter Natrilla, who of course was 4th last time out at Monza, was a runner-up in the opening round at Algarve, had to miss Fuji the middle round, so that's his drop week. He's on 30 points as well. Roman Marchand, absent last week. He is also on 20 points with a 6th and 4th place from the first 2 rounds. So we got Sachin Sobers in 6th, Lexi Taylor in 7th, Yanis Bugiera 8th, Maxime Barbier 9th, and the top 10 is rounded out by Kevin Guillin, the Frenchman in the Porsche. Meanwhile, here is the GT3 standings as the GT3 is getting ready to do battle. It's Vaskin Simona, who's of course won the last 2 races in a row. He is naturally on 50 points, dropping his 4th place from the opener at the Algarve. Maciej Kasperzik won the opener, but has finished 4th and 3rd the last 2 rounds. He's on 40 points. Marin Bessia, who gambled on the wets on a drying track at Monza, fell down to 7th. He's got 2 second places in the bank. He is 3rd at the moment. Then it's Lucas Korsch, who's always sort of been best of the rest, was 2nd the last time out of Monza on 33 points. Jeremy Leitas is 5th. Then it's Olivier Brenu in 6th on 20 points. Nick Dealey is 7th. Rune Babez is 8th. Stanislas Pajot is 10th. And Maxime Wendler rounds out the top 10 on the same amount of points as Pajot then. So the GT3's getting ready to do battle then, Ollie. And this could be a pretty interesting one here, because we know in the dry at Sebring, especially in the dry, it can be a little bit tricky to overtake. There's a couple of good opportunities into turn 1, into Sunset Bend at the end of the Ullman Straight, and then a couple of corners like Tower, you can maybe set something up just before the hairpin at turn 7 as well. But it can be a little bit tricky to sort of, you have to plan your move quite far in advance at Sebring because the way that the track is essentially laid out. So qualifying is probably a little bit more important, even though it is a longer race here, than a track like Monza or potentially even Fuji as well, where we saw lots and lots of back and forth overtakes as the race went on.
Yeah, absolutely. Qualifying really, really important at Sebring, as you said. Especially important, I would like to point out, for Marion Bessier, Lucas Korsch, and Maciej Kasperzik, who all have a chance to gain on Vasco Simonian. Vasco Simonian not yet in the server. We're not sure if he's going to be here for this race. I haven't seen any message from him. I might have missed it, whether he's already let us know that he isn't going to be here. But that is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th currently in the LMGT3 standings, with the leader not present at the race at the moment. This is a massive opportunity for those guys to really jump up the standings and see if they can make some moves towards that top 3, which obviously do then gain promotion up to the Pro Series at the end of the season.
Yeah, we also see a few comments in the chat from LJT asks, how's Christoph Reisch feeling after losing his life savings twice? And I think that's reference to the last couple of rounds where Christoph Reisch bet on Lexi Taylor at Fuji, right as Vasco Simonian and Lexi Taylor then crashed into each other, and Lexi Taylor lost several positions. And then, I think at Monza he decided to go all in on the Mikolai Hutrushki train, and that paid off handsomely. So I think he's only lost his life savings and his full 1K, as I said, in the USA, once rather than twice in a row then. But yeah, as you say, no sign of Simonian, so this could well be the dropped round for him. And you've got to think Kasperzik, of course, winner in the opening round. Bessier, of course, gambled. And Kasperzik, interestingly, at Monza, Kasperzik decided to switch to the dries, and sort of, as a result, that forced Bessier to sort of stay on his strategy of staying out on the wets to the end, which turned out to be absolutely the wrong call. But at that point, it was a sunk cost fallacy, because he knew what the gap was in the EV pit. He was going to come out behind Kasperzik and probably not finish on the podium, essentially. So there comes a point in the strategy where you do have to commit. And so Bessier, he tried his best, but it backfired horribly there. But certainly in terms of qualifying, Varun Bessier has had some really, really excellent pace, but he's sort of the, we were saying last time, he's sort of the Kieran Prendergast, who also coincidentally didn't have a great race at Monza as well, although there was a lot of bad luck in his case. It wasn't just bad strategy, it was wheel failure and speeding in the pit lane because he was too close to the back of one of the hypercars as well, become pit exit. But yeah, certainly Marin Bessier will be desperate to put things right. As look how close Kasperzik gets to the wall on exit, the same one that we saw Roman Marchand clatter into in the warm-up.
Yeah, absolutely. But that line clearly working for him, because as we can see on the timing tower at the moment, Kasperzik is sat up there at the top by, I mean, just over 0.4 of a second. That is not an insignificant gap in qualifying around here at Sebring, especially with how close we've already seen this Contender Series LMGT3 field can be.
Yeah, certainly our sort of top 4 or 5 are pretty close together in this championship. But of course, you see Lucas Korsch a little bit adrift at the moment, 2.2 seconds off the pace. He'll be hoping to get the 66 Ferrari a bit more in range. Unfortunately, just been jumped by Schubert there. Gustav Schubert, of course, who only did Fuji, finished 10th on that occasion and has missed the other 2 races. But good to see Schubert starting to put in a good qualifying showing here in that number 70 McLaren there. But I think you're right, it's really going to be at the moment about that top 3. Kasperzik, Jeremy Leiters, of course, 5th in the championship, needs to get some good points today. And Marin Bessier looking to recover from that bad strategy call in Monza that cost him so dearly. And of course, I believe Simonian that's got, I think Bessier got pole for Algarve, and then it's really been Simonian that's dominated qualifying the last 2 rounds then. So we could well see a new pole sitter in GT3 today, especially if Kasperzik keeps this up, of course. He's got quite a lot of R-Factor 2 endurance experience as Master Kasperzik, so it's no surprise to see the pole as one of our front runners. Remember, the top 3 do get not only the prize money, but the promotion into the Pros Championship for next season as well. And a couple of drivers are probably looking at some of the pro drivers near the back of the GT3 field and thinking, oh, I could probably handle some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It is incredible just how close the overlap in between the series is in terms
Oh,
of
Lightus on pole.
yeah,
Try to go
no,
Chrissy Ollie.
absolutely. Whoa. No, no, don't you worry. But yeah, that is tight at the front there. That's just 800ths of a second that Lightus goes to the
Oh.
front by. That is very, very, very close
And
when we think about
immediately
how difficult this
went
track
off
can be.
track at turn 1 as well, just after setting that lap. But it was that first sector, a 10th clear of Kasperzik that allowed him to hold on. He was doing personal bests in the last 2, but I think Kasperzik was a little bit faster. So now the gauntlet's been thrown down. We got, what, 7 minutes left of this qualifying session. Kasperzik has now got a bit of a fight on his hand because Jeremy Lightus has found the pace exactly when he needed it. Yet to really finish in the top 2 so far this season. His best finish 3rd at the Algarve in the season opener then. So, yeah, the Frenchman putting a superb lap together. And Matthews Kasperzik, now it's all down to him to respond to that. Maybe Bessir and Korsch can do something as well, as it looks like Korsch has gone up to 3rd then.
Yeah, absolutely. Korsch with an improvement, just jumping in front of Bessier, who is back down to P4 now. And it's really interesting to see the Ferraris kind of back out front again in the hands of Jeremy Litas. Obviously, we've seen those Ferraris have relatively significant success in the Pro Series as well. As long as you don't look at Spa, where they all decided that rear grip wasn't a thing for a Rouge.
That didn't show up on stream, so we missed it. As Bessir is going purple in the middle sector here, but he's nearly half a second down in the first, so this might be more of a shot at 3rd place, getting back in front of Lucas Korsch, the German, rather than a bid for pole position. Unless this is an incredible final sector, where Bessir's got some very, very good pace over a single lap, and he does seem very, very fired up in that McLaren. He's the only one who's really been able to get the McLaren to work in the Contender series, and he does beat Lucas Korsch, but only just by, let's see, that's 500ths of a second there. So it's super, super tight in the fight for pole and the fight to start 3rd in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And the positions that these LMGT3s kind of start the race in could be really, really crucial. I know it's early to be talking endgame in terms of the championship season, but I mean, when you have the top 4 so close to each other, all fighting for just those top 3 positions, every single qualifying session and every single race session matters more than you could possibly believe to these guys who are looking for promotion to the Pro Series. So they are going to be fighting tooth and nail every single second that they're on track to get as much out of these cars as they physically can.
And Ollie, of course, I know there are a lot of drivers that look at that 7-car grid in Contender in GT3 and think, oh, maybe they could have let me in to have a go. How can people pre-qualify either for the remaining rounds of this season or maybe next season then as we go into the final 5 minutes of qualifying? Kasperzik looking a little bit scrappy then as he goes through Le Mans and goes on to the Ulmann Straight.
Yeah, so pre-qualifying, we're still having a bit of a discussion about whether we're going to open up pre-qualifying to kind of refill the Contender grid and rejuvenate it a bit. We can confirm that pre-qualifying for the next season, Season 2 of both Pro and Contender, will be open from around the beginning of March. Details are still coming as to the exact date and how the format's going to be, but that is when we're going to be opening up. It's going to be the start of March, and it's going to be 3 weeks of pre-qualifying, then a week where we sort out all the calendars and the grids, and then we're going to get racing as soon as possible in Season 2.
Yeah, and of course we still got the not just the end of the Contender series, but also the first Pro Championship here on Le Mans Ultimate from VMS to finish off as well, with that finale taking place on, is it 9th of March, isn't it? It's that weekend, isn't it? That Sunday, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's the pro finale, so we're going to see in 2.4 hours whether Jene Simoncic, Michi Hoyer or Davin Rokcek can win the overall crown there. At the moment, Simoncic very much on a roll, having won the last 2 rounds in a row. And he is pulled clear in the main championship. The sprint championship, though, looking much closer with Hoyer and Rokcek equal on points then. And I think I worked it out, if Jene wins the last 2 races, then it could be very, very close then, as we see. I think Jerome Mitral setting his last lap there, 2.2 seconds off the pace, but he has certainly out-qualified Room Babeas once more. So I think Jerome Mitral, who's being cheered on by Romain Marchand, is getting ready to go for Hypercar qualifying in his Toyota. He will feel somewhat satisfied with that, but it doesn't look like there's any cars on track. So our 7 GT3s line up in the order of Jeremy Leitus on pole position for the first time, 201.158, 7,900 ahead of Masic Gasperzik. Marin Basir lines up third, half a second in arrears, just ahead of Lucas Korsch. Then it is Gustav Schubert in fifth, Jerome Mitral sixth, and Roomba Bears rounding out your 7-car GT3 grid. Let's see how many of the hypercars show up, because that is certainly going to be the one that I think everybody's going to be really excited to see, because it could be very, very close. I think everyone is expecting another Hutrushki Atrilla fight for pole, with maybe the likes of Tobias Blumschein, of course, on pole in the drying conditions with that gamble on the dry tyres at the end of qualifying in Monza. Now looking to impress at another track that he knows much better than Fuji and the Algarve, which were the first 2 rounds, of course. It looks like Paul Lepere, though, is going to be first to the end of the pit lane in his Ferrari, the man second in the standings. And the Frenchman, of course, another driver that called the strategy perfectly, along with Petrushki. Lepere will be looking for that first win, maybe even a first pole as well. Let's not count out the Ferraris here. They're pretty solid at Sebring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really the hypercar field is where we see the BOP really shine in this game in Le Mans Ultimate. I mean, the LMGT3 BOP, it's very good. You can win in a lot of different cars, but in hypercar is where you really see it could be any of 5 or 6 different manufacturers that can be sat on pole and be winning by the end of the race. It all really depends on the drivers and the strategy, which is absolutely what we want to see. Strategy game is so important, especially in these more endurance style racing, and seeing how long you can go on fuel and virtual energy to minimize pit stop time.
Absolutely. So much to think about. And of course, this will be the longest race that a lot of these drivers have done so far this season. So especially towards the end, fuel management, time management could become much bigger factors than normal. So drivers who fought Monza in the wet conditions on the drying track was tricky. Just wait till we see them in these final stages at Sebring, as there's Walton Atrilla getting to the exit of the pit lane. I have to say, there's been a lot of talk about how Hutrushki in that Lamborghini would probably be quick enough to mix it with some of the front runners and podium contenders in the pro hypercar field. I'm so glad he isn't there, because I'd probably be getting him and Morokchek as the commentators mixed up constantly, because I think that's the only Lamborghini number and livery that is in the game, number 19 in bright green and the Iron Lynx livery. So I think it's almost merciful. We will have to cross that that bridge next season, where hopefully by the time we get then to that point, everyone will be able to put custom liveries on the cars and it won't really be a factor anymore. But anyway, out comes Paul Lepere in the 51, getting ready to do battle in qualifying for the first time here. You see him weaving, trying to warm up the tires and get all the preparation he needs on this lap. The BMW especially, we've seen, does need a fair bit of tire heating, especially early in the race and just before a qualifying lap as well, to get the tires into that optimal temperature window. So keep your eyes on Blumschein, Bugier and Sobers on their formation lap, because they could well be doing the most work to try and get their car just working in that window that they need. And don't forget the brakes as well. You don't want them to go too cold before you get into that first corner.
Yeah, absolutely. The tyre warm-up, as we've seen many times, is incredibly important in these hypercars, whether it's in the game version that we've got here on LMU or whether it is in real life. The warm-up cycle on these hypercars is incredibly sensitive. If you push these tyres even just 10 or 15% too hard whilst warming them up, they are going to be fading away from you by the time quali ends. And you do not want that. You want these tyres to be in prime condition as you get to your lowest fuel laps towards the end of this quali session, to get every single tenth of time out of them as you physically can.
So then, doesn't look like there's any sign of Hutrushki so far. Just 11 hypercars out on track at the moment. So looks like this might be a drop round for the championship leader, but he has got the 3 wins in the bank anyway. So he will be leading the standings no matter what happens here, essentially, because I don't think Lepere or Blumschein can mathematically outscore him, essentially. Although, yeah, especially with Blumschein having to drop his 12th place, which scored him no points. Of course, at Monza, it was a very, very difficult race for him in the end. But Paul Leclerc then looking to go one better, yet to set a pole position this season. It's only the only driver in here that has been on pole in the Ferrari has been Walton Attrilla then. And Attrilla, of course, the Finn, is looking to get back on top then after a slightly tricky race in Monza last time out then. So Paul Leclerc going through the first sector now. He comes out of Big Bend towards the hairpin. And this is a really, really tricky corner, especially in the GT3s, but for the hypercars as well. It's so easy to lock up a brake and find yourself going straight on, especially in damp conditions, as Leclerc has a little squirrely moment on exit there. Unsurprisingly, first man on track. He's purple in the first sector. But this is important for Leclerc to set down the marker then with 7.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. You actually see Walton Attrilla is the first over the line. He set a 1:47.1, so that is the early pace. That's what the Ferrari's capable of, and that's what Leclerc is going to be compared to then as he comes through Tower Corner.
Yeah, absolutely. After everything that I said about treating those tyres kindly, Walton Attrilla has come out and got a 1.5 seconds faster than anyone on that opening lap. He was almost 2 seconds up on the majority of the field just through Sector 1. So clearly Walton Attrilla believes that a slightly more aggressive start to that tyre life might be the way to get more performance out of them. We'll wait and see whether that swings in his favour or not. I'm going to assume that he probably knows more than me, considering that he's doing weekly racing in LMU. So I'm going to trust his instinct for now.
Well, still, I think you know a little bit more than me, having never driven any of these cars in Le Mans Ultimate before, but I have commented on them a lot. Anyway, Paul Leclerc, there we go, snatches away provisional pole, 1:45.9. So he's the first man in the 1:45s, purple in all 3 sectors. But Attrilla is improving on his second lap as well, 0.5 seconds quicker in the first sector and a personal best in the middle. But Leclerc was 0.2 quicker then, so that could well be a crucial margin in the final reckoning here. We have seen a trio of drivers near the back that I think have definitely had to back off, as Attrilla just about keeps it out of the barriers then through Sunset Bend, and in fact does snatch pole position back off Paul Leclerc then with a good enough final sector. So he went from being 0.2 down in the middle to just being 0.2 ahead overall on his lap. Lexi Taylor goes up to third fastest, but only very briefly, because Yvan Chevalier in his second appearance in that Toyota goes third fastest. And Chevalier was very, very impressive in Monza, considering he hadn't really done any of the previous races as well. He was fourth on the grid, if memory serves, and he was leading quite a fair bit of it, but of course tried to stick it out for the longest on the wet tyres and ended up, of course, finishing 7th in the order in the end. Still got some decent points, but yeah, Chevalier has certainly got the potential to do a lot better and be the real fly in the ointment in this championship, as Blumschein now has slotted himself up to 4th, just ahead of Sachin Sober. So the BMWs are starting to find their groove here, which should be interesting. Of course, it was the BMW in the hands of Michi Hoyer that won ultimately in the wet conditions, with a very, very well-timed and very quick pit stop as well, compared to the Cadillacs and the Lamborghinis of Fabio Gricolato and David Mrokchuk, of course. So yeah, the BMW's got some winning history in the Pro Series, but in Contender so far, it's all about these Ferraris.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ferrari's doing really, really well in the Contender Series, and it's really interesting to see where the different car strengths lie across the two fields. We see in LMGT3 as well. There's a far wider spread of cars that are regularly finishing in the top 5 in LMGT3 in the Contenders, as well as that is Demolians around coming onto the back straight there, is it? Indeed it is.
Ullman straight, yeah. So he just came out of Le Mans. He clearly got it wrong through that turn number 16, of course, and found himself very much in the gravel. And we saw that a lot in the way as Walton Attrilla has come to a stop on the exit of turn 1. And that's Roman Marchand has actually beaten his pole time in that Toyota, 1:45.5. So we saw Marchand absolutely testing the limits, and he is continuing to do so in qualifying here. But suddenly the Toyota, remember, he was holding second for a lot of the race in Fuji as well, has come alive here at Sebring. And that is an absolutely fantastic lap that he's put together there. I think it was the middle sector potentially that was really, really strong from Marchand.
Yeah, absolutely. Roman Marchand in that Toyota is going to be is going to be feeling very pleased with himself. The Toyota, not massively a car of favour amongst those at the kind of the very leading edge of the esports side of this game. So Romain Marchand pulling that car up onto pole is very impressive to see.
Big lockup for Paul Leclerc into Sunset Bend. Somehow he gets the Ferrari 499P stopped in time. He is absolutely flying in the middle sector. It's all going to come down to the final one. It's not good enough. That lockup absolutely cost him there a few crucial tenths. He was 8 tenths down in the final sector then. So that means Romain Marchand, with 2.5 minutes or so left to go, is sitting pretty, 10th and a half clear of Walter Triller, looking to take his first pole position, the first pole position for a Toyota Hypercar in any of the VMS championships so far then. And as you say, the Toyota, not often the one of choice, but we now see Chevalier has also found time in the middle sector, fastest of anybody then, as he now has to hook up the final sector. He's getting a little bit of a tow from, I think there's a Porsche just a little bit up the road in front of him then. Across the line he comes. Is it going to be good enough? No. He stays in fifth. Again, the final sector let him down, so potentially he messed up a little bit earlier in the final sector through Le Mans, just before his run onto the Ullman Straight there. Melistes as well in the third of our Toyotas is dead last at the moment, 14 seconds off the pace, but can he improve, at least get himself a little bit closer to the back of the group field? Yes, he can. He's up to 9th, just ahead of Alexi Taylor then.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to note that Romain Marchand there, back out on track, he had returned to garage from the pit lane entry, from what I saw. That might be an issue for the stewards to be looking at. I believe that if you R2G during qualifying, that is your session over, is it not?
Well, he got in trouble at Algarve, remember, because he went out along with the duty-free traffic as he gets well over the curb there through turns 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Just all the car really not responding well to that, but yeah, we'll have to see, because he has incurred the wrath of the stewards before, and Paul Leclerc may well be calling for a penalty at this point. We'll have to see how the stewards decide to set the grid. As Satcher and Sobers gets well onto the grass to let the rest of the Hypercar qualifiers through, as he realizes he's going to have to abandon that lap. It wasn't quite good enough in the first sector then. 50 seconds left to go on the clock then, so everybody's about to start their final laps, and we'll have to see if Marchand is going to keep that pole position or not. Well, for the time being, Ollie, we'll just have to assume that he does, because it would be a bit cruel to sort of preemptively take it away from him and give it to Paul Leclerc without official confirmation from the stewards first. Then Chevalier almost kisses the wall there, appropriately enough for a race on Valentine's Day there, but fastest final sector, personal best, sorry, I should say, in the final sector, but only good enough for 5th then. Still 2 tenths behind Tobias Blumschein then, and Blumschein best of the BMWs, but they don't seem to have the raw speed of the Toyotas and Ferraris here quite yet in qualifying. At least over one lap, the race could well be a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, whilst we were talking about Paul Leclerc there, we've missed that he's jumped ahead of Walter Triller on that last lap before he came into the pits. He was third, now second, just 0.03 of a second in front of that number 83 Ferrari for Paul Leclerc now, which I'm sure he'll be very happy with.
Yeah, certainly you always want to be the lead Ferrari, especially if anything happens to Romain Marchand. But it's such a narrow, tight margin as well between those two Ferraris. So you've got two top drivers in one of the fastest hypercars that there is in this contender field today. And it's no surprise to see them neck and neck with each other, although I'm sure Mikolaj Hutrushka would be looking on at this and thinking, I could have easily taken both of them if I had been able to show up today. But again, he's got those 3 wins in the bank already. So if anything, he's the one in the most comfortable position in the championship. It's the likes of a Triller, a Blumschein, Marchand that have got basically non-scores to their name already this season. They can't afford to drop anything. Whereas Paul Leclerc, he also has that 3rd place in the bank. So he's sort of the second most comfortable driver in the field when we apply those drop scores then. As we see Johan Chevalier about to finish his last lap here. It's a little bit of a letdown in the first sector, but a somewhat neck and neck middle sector there. So he might be able to pull it out then, depending on how this run to the line goes. Across the line he comes. It's a personal best. It's up to 4th then, ahead of Tobias Blumschein there. So a good final effort from Johan Chevalier, but Blumschein, oh, he's a bit off in the first sector. 8 tenths. This is a mighty amount of time that he's got to find here. Can Tobias Blumschein just hold on through this final corner on the run to the line. There's a yellow flag somewhere out on track. Blumschein, no, he stays 5th then. So crucial final lap from Chevalier, and Blumschein, who was looking good for 4th for most of that section, is going to have to line up 5th on the grid then. So the man who took the gamble, started on pole at Monza, is now 5 places low. Well, actually, he started at the very back in Monza, of course, because he missed the grid. So he's going to be ruining that now in 5th position, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what an incredible qualifying session. I mean, just look at the time splits here. We've got the top 3 covered by under 0.2 of a second. I mean, it really could be anyone's race. We've got 100 minutes of racing to come up, and we have no clue how that's going to unfold, especially not with times that are this close to each other.
In the words of Ollie Shakespeare, absolutely. So, as you said multiple times, Ollie.
Yeah.
Often you've got to have a stock phrase to come back to. It's your trademark as a commentator.
What can I say? Absolutely. No,
it leaves you in no doubt on what your opinion is. So there might be time now to briefly go through the entire starting order. It is a little bit of a reduced field, mainly because of the length of the race then. Romain Marchand then provisionally starts on pole position with Paul Lepere alongside him. Then it is our second Ferrari, Walter Triller, starting on the second row with Yvan Chevalier joining him in close company after that brilliant late effort. The 2 BMWs are Tobias Blumschein and Sachin Sobers, 5th and 6th on row 3. Then on row 4, it's Maxime Barbier, his best qualifying this season with Olivier de Molins in the other Porsche alongside him on row 4. Row 5 is Lexi Taylor with Yanis Bougiera in the 3rd BMW for close company. Then on row 6, it's Kostas Melistas and our GT3 pole sitter, Jeremy Leitas, for the first time. Can he win for the first time today? Message Kaspersik alongside him on row 7 will be Marin Bessier. Those two have had some great fights so far this season, as have Lucas Korsch. Alongside in row 8 will be Gustav Schubert. Jerome Mitral and Rune Babeas make up row 9, and I believe they are our final 2 drivers on the grid then. So only 9 rows then. Let's hope as many as possible get to the end of this one then, because this is it's gonna feel like a long race, and certainly it could well pan out that way if the gap spread out quickly. But I think we're in for a fantastic fight between our 2 Ferraris and potentially Romain Marchand as well. We'll be looking to run away with this one if indeed he's allowed to start on pole position, Ollie.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like as of yet there's not been any sort of decision against that possible infringement from Romain Marchand. It is only from vague memory of when we were writing the sporting regulations that I'm trying to remember whether that is or isn't allowed. It may only be the race that I'm thinking about. I'm sure that if Lepere goes through the regulations at the end of the race and finds that Romain Marchand was outside of the regulations when doing that there will be an appeal submitted pretty much instantly to try and rectify that.
Problem is, poor Romain Marchand is not going to have too many friends in this panic, because they all want to get a position off him, either by means fair or foul. But if it's against the rule book, then there isn't a big defense there. So we will have to see. I don't think I've really got time before the start of this race and the 30 seconds before we get underway to flick through it then, Ollie. But regardless then, Romain Marchand will be looking to take maximum points on track then. And it's up to Paul Lepere, Walter Triller, Yvan Chevalier and Tobias Blumschein to stop him. I think those 5 are all going to hotly contest those podium positions. And don't forget Jeremy Leitas as well in the GT3 pole. What a fantastic opportunity this is for him. 5th in the championship at the moment. Needs to get the jump on Lucas Korsch and Marin Bessier at the very least, as well as the absent Vaskin Simonian and Message Kaspersik right behind him, to get any chance of getting into the top 3 and start to put himself into contention for promotion into pro next season, and of course the prize money that comes with that top 3 position then. As they about to go through Sunset Corner, final thoughts then going into the start, Ollie?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of drivers looking to make big positions and big points here in the championship standings. Drivers that are fighting for those top 3 positions in both classes, with a couple of drivers absent currently in those top 4s and top 5s. There could be some really, really big points and big position moves on the table here at Sebring.
So the tension building now as Romain Marchand is about to lead the field away then. The 100 minutes of Sebring is about to go to green flag any moment now as the field waits in anticipation. And there is the clock. 1 hour, 40 minutes is underway then, and Marchand accelerates away towards the first corner, but Paul Lepere is going to try and go around the outside into that first bend, and look at Walton and Triller holding off Ivan Chevalier and the two BMW Chevaliers off track at the first corner. Oh, and straight into the wall goes one of the Porsches there. Didn't quite see who that was, but they've emerged right in the middle of the pack. That's not Demolians, is it? That I think, no, it's Maxime Barbier, sorry, in the number 99 Predom. We've not seen anybody use that livery so far, so it was a bit of a yes there. But look at the jump that one of the McLarens has gotten, I think, in the GT3 package. We've got Walton Triller now, who has muscled his way past Paul Lepere for second, and now he's right behind Romain Marchand in this fight for victory then. So Triller, who of course lost that win with that locking the rear brakes at Algarve to Mikolaj Hutrishki, now has got another fantastic opportunity to snatch victory. But Romain Marchand, we know how good a defensive driver he is from Fuji. This is going to be a fight and a half for Walton Triller if the Finn wants to take his first win of the season.
Yeah, and Triller and Lepere here really have to think the long game. Obviously, both of these drivers massively wanting to win this race for the championship, but getting to the end in a good position is far more important than trying to take the lead and possibly having any sort of contact. We're going to see some smart racing here from these guys today because they want to avoid contact as much as possible.
Oh, and look at this. Blumschein fancies another go at his old sparring partner, Paul Lepere. They've had so many good fights so far this season. Blumschein's going to go around the outside at Sunset Bend, but Paul Lepere breaks very, very late. Blumschein has to stick to the outside, but the Ferrari goes a bit wide at the apex, leaves the door open. Tobias Blumschein says, thank you very much. I'm going to go straight through that open door, and the BMW is onto the bottom step of the podium. And look at Sachin Sobers. He fancies a go at getting involved in this battle as well, as Blumschein has to defend into the first corner. Lepere is going backwards in this race. That's exactly what he didn't want to happen here, as now Sobers is nipping away at his heels here, and he's got a good run through turn 5 as they go onto Big Bend then and towards the hairpin here. Sobers is going to try and go all the way around the outside. Look at Chevalier as well, looking to take advantage as well after his difficult start to the race as well, going off at the first corner. Lepere is going to defend the inside into the turn 7 hairpin, tries to run Sobers out wide. Up the inside now comes Chevalier, and he's going to try and drag Lexi Taylor and Olivia Demolians in the Porsches with him as well then. So it's all action right now as Marchand holding a Triller at bay. Meanwhile, Jeremy Leitas continues to lead. Marin Basia now, who's jumped Massive Kaspersik by a second as Sobers goes a little bit wide then through the Collier corner there, and this allows Chevalier to have a go at him as well.
Yeah, it was a nasty rear lock-up there for Sachin Sobers, which has allowed Chevalier to close up, although not quite get past. And I tell you what, if you were to open up the racing dictionary and flip to switchback, you would see that move from Thomas Blumschein there. That was absolutely incredible through Sunset to get past Paul Lepere and up onto the bottom step of the podium.
Yeah, well, Tobias Blumschein, of course, huge experience in sim racing. This is a track like Le Monza that he knows very, very well from his experience in R Factor 2. Of course, he was a Division 2 driver in the Virtual Endurance Championship as Barbier has gotten himself a penalty for, I believe, track limits there, as Tobias Blumschein has to get right on the brakes at Sunset there. He nearly went straight to the back of a Triller. So a Triller, far from fighting Marchand, is now having to defend from Tobias Blumschein, who after a slightly disappointing end to qualifying has just been absolutely on fire at the start of this race.
Oh, speeding in the pits, that one.
That Maxime Barbier got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane during an early pit stop. So clearly all is not well at the wheel of the number 99 Prodom Porsche there. So we hope Maxime Barbier, who's at the very rear of the field behind even all of the GT3s, he's got an awful long way to go in this race. Luckily, he's got 90 minutes left, at least to try and get something out of this race. You never know what the attrition rate is going to be like, as, oh, that's a terrible exit there from Walton Triller, and Tobias Blumschein will be getting very, very excited now as he looks to the outside then into turn 10 as they go towards Collier, and a Triller just defends the middle of the road, tries to back Blumschein back into the path of the second Ferrari of Paul Lepere here. And is it me, or do the Ferraris not look anywhere near as strong over the race in these early laps as they did in qualifying. Maybe it's the heavy fuel that they're not responding well to in the hypercar class.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the heavy fuel or whether it's the changing conditions. Obviously, qualifying was relatively sunny, and now we've moved into the race and it's quite heavily overcast. I'm not sure if that's having any sort of impact. But that BMW in the hands of Blumshine right now is looking absolutely rapid. I don't know how long Walton Atrilla is going to be able to hold off this V8 hybrid that's going to be steaming its way through here.
Here we go then. Blumshine again has a look to the outside at Sunset Bend. Walton Atrilla, he's doing the Paul Lepere. He's going wide and leaving the door open for Tobias Blumshine to nip that BMW up the inside and into second position here. This is an absolutely fantastic start from Tobias Blumshine. And Roman Marchand, 2 seconds ahead, is now going to start looking in his mirrors as well, because Blumshine is surely going to be catching them with the pace that he's got. And now Atrilla is going to be fighting against Lepere now to try and hold on to this podium there. So the two Ferraris, the 83 and the 51, are being played out of contention at the moment.
Yeah, I mean the move from Tobias Blumshine there was absolutely beautiful. I have a funny feeling that if Marchand sees Blumshine coming up in his rearview mirror coming into Sunset Curve, he's going to be very, very worried, because Blumshine has made two stellar moves through the final corner there so far this race.
Lock up from Sachin Sobers, and that leaves just enough room for Jan Chevalier to nip up the inside. And Sobers, very nearly turned in on him there on the exit through Fangio. Turns 8 and 9 on the run up to that turn 10 right-hander then. Respect the bumps, says the advertising hoarding in the background there. And indeed, very, very good advice, especially in tricky conditions when the grip is at a premium. But Masic Kasperzik then, having been jumped by Marin Basir at the start, is now starting to move around all over the back of the rear wing of that McLaren. We know the BMW can be quite a tough car to pass here. It's pretty good in low traction and in acceleration in a straight line, essentially. So, but a mistake there from Marin Basir, and Kasperzik just not quite able to take advantage of it there. He was just blocked through the hairpin, as now we see Paul Lepere trying to go round the outside of Atrilla in this fight for the final step on the Hypercar podium. And again, Paul Lepere is learning from what Tobias Blumshine did to him early in the race and trying to do the same move as Atrilla taps the barrier there. A small hit, it shouldn't lead to any damage there, but that shows you Atrilla is under so much pressure here. He's gone from a man who was looking good to really take advantage in the championship to all of a sudden looking extremely vulnerable to Paul Lepere, the man second in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was both of them that got a clip of the wall there. It certainly looked like it was from my perspective. And Walton Atrilla very wise to the attempted move from Paul Lepere there as we move back to this battle between Marion Bessier and Maciej Kasperzik.
Tobias Blumshine, by the way, is half the gap to Roman Marchand, who see yellow flag somewhere out on track in the hypercar field there. You see all of our GT3 still in the same shot there as we cut back to Sobers now, who's 1.3 seconds behind Ivan Chevalier there. So he's starting to lose touch there as Blumshine begins to close on the lead. And after all the misfortune that Blumshine suffered in a race that he really should have started from pole position a week ago at Monza, how sweet it would be for him to fight his way into victory contention. But we still got 90 minutes to go in this race. Very, very good move there. Kasperzik didn't have to do anything too fancy. Marin Basir just went wide at turn 1, and the BMW did not need to be asked twice there. That was really, really good awareness from Kasperzik to take advantage of that mistake from Marin Basir then, who this is really not good for his championship to see the man second in the standings breeze past him like that.
As always, we're seeing that those mistakes can be really costly. Sorry for stepping on your toes there. I was watching it live just in case the move happened whilst you were commentating on the hypercar battles. But yeah, we see again, mistakes can be so costly, especially when these two are fighting for those promotion positions to the Pro Series for Season 2.
Flashing his lights as Blumshine into turn 1. He knows he's a lot quicker than Roman Marchand at this phase, and he doesn't want to lose any time whatsoever stuck behind him then, as he's just a little bit of impatience creeping in. These two battled before as well at Fuji, and remember Tobias Blumshine made a mistake while they were lapping some of the GT3 track. They had to go right off track. Looks like Lexi Taylor has hit trouble and has had to make an early pit stop. Again, that's not necessarily the end of the world for him having to pit 10 minutes into the race. Just look at how much Marchand is backing Blumschein back into the path of our two Ferraris here. So Walter Triller, he will start to feel Roman Marchand is his best friend now, because all of a sudden the Ferraris could get back into the mix here if Marchand is slowing up Blumschein at the right places in these sort of low-speed corners here, where it can be so difficult to pass, even if you get a better exit than someone in front of you, if they just block the middle of the road.
It is going to be really important for Thomas Blumschein to get past Marchand whilst this is still just a 2-car fight. Turning this into a 4-car fight for Marchand is absolutely the ideal. If he can get those two Ferraris involved and make Blumschein have to do both defense and attack at the same time, it's going to make it very hard for that BMW to get past Marchand for the lead.
Yeah, he definitely wants to overwhelm Tobias Blumschein, but Blumschein, he's learned from his experiences in the first 3 races, especially after all the hard knocks he suffered in Monza a week ago. As we see Lexi Taylor in the background just exiting the pit lane in 17th overall. So both him and Barbier are well behind the GT3 pack, although Taylor is only about 13 seconds behind the rear of the GT3 field. So in theory, he should be able to make his way through relatively quickly, whereas Barbier still 48 seconds in the rear view mirror. There's Tobias Blumschein. That's how much he's pushing. He tapped the wall there on entry into the apex at turn 1 there. And of course, it sort of does stick out naturally. If you're running the risk, you've got to brush the wall like that. You just got to make sure you don't hit it with the rear end, because then you can suddenly find yourself losing control and going from fighting for victory to having a big accident.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at when Blumschein is really going to want to be looking at getting past Marchand. The last car in the GT3 field is currently, if you were to watch the offboard shot of Marchand, you can see the last GT3 car. They are closing rapidly to the GT3 traffic, and that's only going to make it harder for that move to happen.
Yeah, you would think so in theory, but Marchand, as he sees number 70 McLaren going off track, making a mistake right as the Hypercar field catches him. And that's always tricky with the rejoin there. You really don't want to come upon the leaders at the worst possible moment there, as Tobias Blumschein this time is able to just keep off the grass through Tower Corner. But you can tell as the fight gets more and more intense, the pressure will ramp up on all of our 4 leaders, except maybe for Lepere as well, who is just watching the 3 in front of him squabble away and hoping to take advantage, essentially. Meanwhile, Jeremy Leitas has extended the gap to Kasperzik to 2.6 seconds, but Master Kasperzik, the BMW, still got decent pace, is starting to match the lap times at the 55 Ferrari in front of it. Marin Basia is hanging on to Kasperzik's coattails by just under a second as well, but Lucas Korsch 1.2 seconds in the race. So our 4 leaders in GT3 are still closely bunched together within the same straight then. 5 seconds separates them all, but it's less than that really between our top 4, maybe even our top 5. Chevalier isn't too far off Lepere now, 1.2 seconds. So Lepere cannot afford to just sit back and watch the fireworks, because Chevalier is starting to catch him too. It could well be a 5-way fight, 2 Ferraris, 2 Toyotas and a BMW.
Yeah, I was just about to point that out before you picked up on it, that actually Chevalier has been kind of attached to the back of this group for the last couple of laps as well, just sitting outside that seconds buffer to Paul Lepere. But if these top 4 were to start fighting, he's going to be there in an instant and make it into a 5-car battle.
Oh, was that a slow down for Tobias Blumschein, and the Ferraris just have to swerve to avoid him. Chevalier is going to get through as well, but I think that might have been a track limits issue there for Tobias Blumschein. So to avoid a penalty, he slowed right down. That's cost him 3 positions and a fair amount of chunk of time. Marchand is now 2.2 seconds ahead of Walter Triller there, and that is gutting for Tobias Blumschein, who was right in the mix for victory. He's now got to make all of those moves all over again. It's a reset from 0 for him.
Talk about a breather for Romain Marchand. He must be one of the happiest men on track right now, having seen that gap open up, because he was under some extreme pressure from Blumschein right now, before he made that mistake. Obviously, Blumschein knows that he's got the pace to get past these 3 cars in front of him. It's just going to be a game of doing it cleanly to get back up to second again.
Yeah, backing off there would have cost him less overall in the race than being penalised, having to do an extra stop in the pit lane as well. Especially over this distance. It's bad enough in the normal contender round. The sprint rounds, they're only 40 minutes long, but with an extra hour added on, that it can be, you've got more time to recover, of course, but you really are going to think long term. So it was the right move from Tobias Blumschein to avoid further punishment, but Certainly, you would have rather just not had to make the track extension at all there, as we see some action for the podium position in GD3. I think that's Taylor, of course, just trying to clear some of the GD3's 4 overall position then after his stop then, as we see. There goes Marchand now, getting past, lapping for the first time in this race, but certainly not the last. Mastić, Kasperzik and Marin Basir before him.
Yeah, the lapping is going to be really, really important around Sebring. Obviously, it is one of these old-style tracks built on an airfield, which I'm sure you've all heard watching about 1 million times before, because it's said every time any series comes to Sebring. But having that old style of track layout means that it is tight, it is twisty, and there's no concrete to run off onto. If you make a move and you go wide on one of these lapped cars, you're in the grass.
Ooh. And there we go, very visual demonstration of that from Paul Lepere then as they go through Tower Corner, and that holds up Chevalier. Oh, when he makes contact with Tobias Blumschein, who flashes the lights there. There was a small opportunity. He wasn't quite able to get through, but now going towards Le Mans. Oh, look how aggressive Blumschein is being, showing his nose on the outside there. That's a very unusual move there. We've not seen that one pulled off very, very often, especially in Hypercar there, but you can tell Blumschein especially fired up now, having made that mistake, and it gives Walter Attrition a little bit of breathing room as well, to the tune of about half a second from Lepere, who was previously all over the back of him. Look in the background too, is that Sobers and Demolians just picking off GD3 back markers now. It's weird to say back markers when they're still running in the top 7 essentially, because there are only 7 of them. But yeah, nonetheless, there are some decent points up for grabs for the likes of Bobers and Schubert and Mitral, of course. Tobias Blumschein. Yeah, also go on.
No, don't worry. All I was going to say is that Chevalier is doing an absolutely brilliant job for the 2 Ferraris ahead of him right now. He's obviously doing a brilliant job for his own race as well, but the 2 Ferraris ahead will want Blumschein to be stuck behind Chevalier for as long as physically possible. And they'll be very, very thankful that Toyota is putting up such a stout defence at the moment.
And the other thing, Ollie, we need to start thinking about the pit strategy. If you were Tobias Blumschein, might you be thinking about trying to undercut these drivers rather than being stuck behind them? Because it's clearly costing him a fair bit of time at this point in the race now. So he's in this position where he's sort of boxed in strategically, because in the overall picture of this race, remember Marchand is now 3 seconds ahead of Walter Attrition and starting to pull away.
Yeah, it's really difficult. You know, only 20 minutes into the race, we're looking, it's too early to pit at this point. We've seen hypercar drivers take that fuel and take that virtual energy for 60 minutes, and I reckon that the top lot in this Contender Series will be able to replicate that. But that means that, realistically, Blumschein is looking at least another 20 minutes before the earliest point that he can come into the pit lane. And then you've got to consider the amount of time you're going to spend stopped waiting for your virtual energy tank to top up, because that is the critical, really, really pivotal point of a pit stop, is how long that virtual energy fill-up will take. That's where the time is gained and lost.
Exactly, and that was what's so crucial for Michi Hoy, getting out first and eventually winning that race. Although you did say they were able to get the fuel tank to last all the way, there were those pit stops to change tyres, and it was wet throughout as well. So that meant they were lapping a little bit slower and able to save fuel a little bit more easily in the wet conditions that we had in the second half of that race. But look, Tobias Blumschein is sort of in win it or bin it mode. He's like about to breeze off track every single moment here as he actually taps the back of, twice there. Ivan Chevalier gets a little bit of a kiss in the rear then, so plenty of Valentine's Day action going on from the front muzzle of the Tobias Blumschein's BMW here. He's not shy about showing the love for Chevalier's Toyota, or maybe it's the opposite emotion being shown here. He really wants to get through, and who can blame him there as Chevalier makes a mistake there and leaves the door wide open. Tobias Blumschein only needed one opportunity, and he has been given it, and he goes through with full relish and joy into 4th position once more. Now, next target, those 2 Ferraris then, and Attrition Lepere. The feeling of deja vu will be starting to overcome them, because they're about to see Tobias Blumschein rapidly close in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I think Chevalier there realised that his compromised exit was going to lead to Blumschein getting past him, really, no matter what he tried to do. So he didn't make that too difficult for the BMW driver. Obviously faster for him to let Tobias go and stick with this pack than it was for both of them to fight and lose time to those podium positions.
So then, Blumshine. Oh, a little bit of a flash of the lights there as well. Was that just a preemptive, I'm coming for you guys, or is that just because it's starting to get dark here at Sebring as the cloud cover continues to cover the circuit? No sign of rain, though. Triller and Lepere have been starting to fight back. They're starting to match lap times of Roman Marchand. Look how close Paul Lepere was to the wall on exit at Sunset Bend there. I think it is just starting to get dark then, so I think that was all just them turning on the front headlights then. So we have got a Triller continuing to do a fantastic defensive job then. But Blumshine, he doesn't seem in quite as much of a hurry as he was in those early phases. He seems to be settling in, taking his time to put pressure on them, waiting for them to crack rather than forcing the issue there. So Tobias Blumshine is learning very much as he goes. Meanwhile, Jeremy Leitas is just checking out from Maciej Kasperzik at the front of the GT3 field. So is he going to be our third winner in the first 4 races at the moment? All signs point to that, and this is a much needed winning performance so far from Jeremy Leitas. The way this race is currently going for him, it's going to do his championship a load of good, and certainly Maciej Kasperzik for the 3rd race in a row is going to come off second best to a Ferrari essentially.
Yeah, it will be really, really important for Leitas in terms of the championship. Possibly looking at another driver that's going to be able to get up and be fighting in amongst the fight for those top 3 positions to be promoted to the Pro Series for next season, especially if he does manage to pull off the win here in the endurance round.
Yeah, it would be a big blow for Lucas Korch. Of course, have been very consistent so far this season. 3rd and 2nd in the last 2 races, but down to 4th at the moment. Although it wouldn't be his result because he did, of course, Lucas Korch did spin in the first round at the Algarve while running on the podium with just a few minutes left to go at the first corner, and ended up finishing 6th in the GT3 order there. That was a pretty eventful day indeed. But now we're about to see a hypercar battle for the lead. It's refreshing with Hutrishki not here. It's been sort of anybody's game so far in this race. Ivan Chevalier, to his credit, has been keeping Blumshine very, very honest. He's certainly not going to lose hope and lose track of those 2 Ferraris then, even if Blumshine is able to clear them relatively quickly before the first set of pit stops then. We are 23 minutes into this race then, and the order is Marchand, 3.5 seconds now ahead of Walton Triller, with Lepere 3 tenths behind, Blumshine half a second behind, and then Chevalier 4 tenths behind there. So our top 5 in both classes, that's really where the battles are at the present moment, although keep your eyes on sort of 6th onwards, because there is a pretty close battle going on a bit further down with Sobers, I think, leading that one behind Chevalier at the moment then, as we see Paul Lepere there looking to take advantage. There's something going on at the back of the GT3 pack. Is that Schubert that's gotten up to 5th then? Or is that Maciej Kasperzik under attack from Marin Basir then? Basir shows his nose to the inside. Through goes the number 99 Proton competition Porsche. That's Maxime Barbier, of course, spun on the first lap, and that will not influence this battle too much in the end then, as we cut back to Tobias Blumshine, the man of the moment. Now, this is a critical phase in the race. What will the Ferraris do? Will they start to work together here strategically? Will Paul Lepere take up the Ivan Chevalier role and just impede the progress of Tobias Blumshine while Walton Triller tries to make a break for it? Or will they start to think it's every man for himself? I'm going to fight my own race and try to not lose too much time to Marchand in the overall scheme of things.
It's going to be really difficult for these 2 Ferraris. They've got a whole host of options to try and deal with Blumshine behind them, and I don't know which one of them is the better option at the moment. I think with how easily he got past them earlier on in the race, possibly working together would be their best bet. Work together, hold him off, and try and... Oh, wow, that was incredibly close. I don't know how he's not run into the back of Lepere there.
I would wager Tobias Blumshine is going to have to put some new tyres on at the first pit stop here. He's certainly not going to be double stinting like we saw some of the drivers in the Pro Championship do at Le Mans there. But yeah, just surviving that there. Tobias Blumshine is taking every risk he can here to try and get himself back in a position to potentially challenge for victory here. But interestingly, Triller is starting to ever so slightly close on Marchand here. So Marchand, while he's had things his own way so far from pole position, he's not looking all that comfortable here, as I think he was held up a little bit by the traffic in front of him, as again, they're all flashing their lights at each other, and Blumshine, I think, does tap the back of Paul Lepere there. These two always seem to be on the same piece of racetrack, don't they? Inevitably, every round so far in this championship, Tobias Blumschein and Paul Leclerc have been fighting like cats and dogs for podium positions here, and they could well be fighting for a win come the end of this here. This is absolutely mission critical then, as Walter Triller, he cannot break away from the pack here. Paul Leclerc, you sense he is starting to get a bit frustrated here as well.
Yeah, possibly
Leclerc. Right behind Kasperzik in the fight for second, sorry.
No, don't you worry about stepping over me. Absolutely, this GT3 battle has been immense so far between Kasperzik and Bessier.
Bessier right on the curb then through the Big Bend, turn 6, and look at how much Kasperzik going right to the inside as soon as possible to defend into the hairpin at turn 7 there. Bessier shows his nose on the outside. That's not traditionally where the grip is, but he might be able to get a better exit then as they come towards Cunningham Corner and turn 10. Through Fangio they go for the kink. Can Bessier get a wheel alongside? Almost. He is going to try and show the nose for that McLaren. Round the outside at Cunningham then. And can he get the overlap? Oh, the McLaren drifting out wide and tapping the back of Kasperzik's BMW here. And Jeremy Leitis is loving this because the gap is just growing and growing behind them as Kasperzik is being forced to get really, really defensive here. Fantastic little duel for second.
Yeah, Leitas has got really the run of the field here. He can do pretty much whatever he likes. As now we see Blumschein is alongside Lapierre. Is this going to end up in a move for the podium for the BMW driver? It's around the outside. It's not the favoured move. He's managed to hang it around there, though.
It work. He's going to be on the outside for Tower, though. Just no! They don't avoid contact. Blumschein hits the back, and that's out. Paul Leclerc's lost the rear tyre. He is going to be our first retirement from the race, and in spectacular fashion, too. So Paul Leclerc, who had not had any dropped rounds so far, had finished on the podium at almost every race so far this season. He had actually finished consistently on the podium there. He is going to be absolutely furious with Tobias Blumschein for that one there, because they just didn't leave each other enough room. It wasn't intentional from Tobias Blumschein, just a tap there, frustration starting to boil over, and Blumschein is up to third, but has he incurred damage? That's certainly not the way he would have wanted to do it there.
Shows just how on edge these hypercar setups are when you get to the top end of the Contender Series and into the Pro Series. These setups run on an absolute knife edge, and that really shows just how knife edge they are. A tiny bit of contact and Leclerc fired off into the wall, and unfortunately losing that rear right corner and out of the race.
Yeah. Simrace in the chat says, that's quite poor. You didn't even learn how to read names properly. The way you say Kasperzik gives this guy nothing, even though he's driving well. You can't understand who you're talking about. Well, he's talking to a guy who actually hired message Kasperzik to drive in my team as well. So to say I don't know him or know what I'm talking about, I think is a little bit insulting there. But nonetheless, you can say whatever you want about me in the chat. I won't necessarily read out all of it, though. Especially if it's...
No.
But anyway, message Kasperzik, whose last name, I will admit there's a lot of consonants in there, but I have asked him. He doesn't seem too bothered about the way I've pronounced it, so I've continued to do the best I can. Maybe we'll interview him afterwards and see what he thinks about the way how I've been commentating. Obviously, sometimes listen to these races afterwards, but at the moment, he's got his hands full of Marin Bessier then. So I was calling Marin Bessier Brazier in the first race, and nobody commented on that.
That's not quite the same thing, is it? That is not quite the same thing.
To be fair, there's a lot of prep you do for the Pro Championship, and originally I think there was a plan to have someone else do Contender, and they couldn't find anyone, so I decided I would give it a go. And I'm not being paid to do either this or Pro, so I think for a free commentary gig, I think people should be a little bit more charitable personally, but I am doing the best I can to pronounce these names. I'm not... If I get something wrong, I don't mean it in an insulting way, and I'm sure it's the same with you, Ollie, when you've been calling Tobias Blumschein Thomas Blumschein.
Yeah, I did call him Thomas. Yeah, I do try to catch myself when I get these wrong. Obviously, first time commentating on the Contender Series here, so I might put a few feet in the wrong places across the length of this stream.
Yeah, nonetheless, we all have to start somewhere, but I'm on with less excuses, so I guess I've got to carry the can for mispronunciations then. As Roman Marchand then continues to lead. He's actually got the gap up to nearly 4 seconds now over Walter Trillis. So the Finn starting to be closed in again by Tobias Blumschein. Blumschein, to his credit, has not suffered too much damage from the hit with Paul Lepere, who of course has sadly had to retire from this race. We might be hearing from a very, very angry Paul Lepere in the chat before too long. I hope he takes a little bit of time to cool down at the very least there, but that was certainly, you've got to feel sympathetic for Paul, because he was having not the greatest start to the race. Of course, qualified in the front row and was doing a good defensive job up until there was that contact there. It's difficult to really apportion blame either way, and I think that's more of a job for the stewards there. Now they're coming upon the duty-free second-place fight as Kasperzik well and truly under attack, and now has to leave space for Atrilla and Blumshine. Blumshine is still there through Tower Corner, and can Marin Basir take advantage now? Kasperzik knows he lost out there. Here comes Basir up the inside then as they go towards Le Mans corners at the end of this lap, and he's going to sweep his way through. That was very opportunistic from Marin Basir, and Kasperzik, the man second in the championship, has got to make that move for second all over again.
Yeah, a little bit of BMW on BMW action there, and unfortunately it's come off bad for Kasperzik. I'm sure he's not going to be massively pleased about that, but I've got to say, Blumshine, I mean, he just had to make that move. Realistically, didn't he? He cannot afford to back off of Walter Triller at all, and it's Kasperzik back through.
Yeah, Basir didn't really try and defend Sunset Bend there. He's focused completely on his exit. Kasperzik slipped up the inside, and he's going to have track position then. As of course, line with 1 hour and 9 minutes left to go. We're within about 9 minutes of the pit stop phase. Basir shows his nose to the inside, nearly gets cut across there by Message. Kasperzik has to get out the throttle, and Sobers, now up to 5th, of course, with Paul Lepere's retirement, is now going to try to lap both of them. As Jeremy Light is actually holding up Yvan Chevalier in the background now, as Tobias Blumshine is going to try and attack Walter Triller round the outside into the hairpin. Triller breaks very, very deep into that turn 7 hairpin, almost too deep, and now he's going to be looking very, very vulnerable as they go towards the middle sector and Cunningham corner here. Blumshine needs to get through now, because Marchand is nearly 5 seconds ahead. Round the outside at Cunningham corner he goes, and again, this is another marginal move here. Are they going to leave each other enough space? They bang wheels once. Are they going to bang again as they go towards the S-bend here into Tower Corner? Just enough space left. More contact made, and it's Blumshine that's on the outside, as now Chevalier is caught back up to both of them.
Yeah, that's a little bit of all's fair in love and war there. I think that's just some proper old kind of rubbing his racing style there. They each gave a bit, they each took a bit. I think in the end, I don't think they'll have too much to complain about from that series. Just some really, really great racing here for those podium positions.
Free wide as round the outside goes Lexi Taylor, but Basir and Kasperzik still side by side, and it's Kasperzik who holds on round the outside this time. So Marin Basir, lightning didn't quite strike twice with the Hypercars traffic, or Hypercar lapping them as traffic, I should say. And he's going to have to stay in third position for the time being. But look at Chevalier now. He's starting to close right on the back of Tobias Blumshine. So is Blumshine, with all the aggression he's shown in this race, starting to run out of tyres then as we close upon the first pit stops? Who is going to try and stretch them out with the fuel, and who is going to just go in as soon as possible then?
Yeah, the strategy call could be really, really important here. You know, we've seen already across both pro and contenders that the strategy calls can make a massive, massive difference to the track position of these cars and to the finishing position come the end of the race. We've already seen various people jump or lose positions by coming down pit lane at the wrong time, and that is going to be playing on these drivers' minds as we get towards those kind of really critical decision moments.
Indeed. So it's not just about track position, it's also about fuel management, tire management, and making sure you pit at the right time as well. You might be able to run a bit longer. I think we're looking at a 2-stop race here, aren't we? If the fuel tank can last about 40 minutes at a time with a 1 hour, 40-minute race then. But yeah, certainly there might be some that decide to stay out a bit longer so they have the fresher tyres at the end, and others that will go for the track position and then try and hold on in those closing stages. Look at this. The back camera of Walter Triller shows you Tobias Blumshine and Yvan Chevalier. You can see the menacing purple headlights on Tobias Blumshine's car. When it was raining here at Sebring, you could really see Michi Hoyer in that BMW from like a mile away, because there was that purple glow. It looked a little bit like a Fast and Furious car or something in the middle of the night. You know, one of those decked out Supras or something with like the glow lights at
the underglow. Yeah.
There's a proper car tuner name for those. I can't remember what they're called, for the lights you have at the bottom of the car. But,
Yeah.
but anyway, a little bit wide then from Walton Attrilla at the first corner. Now Tobias Blumschoen will greedily eat up the track. He looks almost like a shark, doesn't he, from this angle? Very low down, very, very bright headlights, very, very aggressive driving style. And Yvan Chevalier matching them blow for blow at the present moment. They're starting to pull 10 seconds clear of Sachi and Sobers at the moment. So, yeah, that certainly shows you we've got 3 different manufacturers. Very, very deep for Tobias Blumschoen, and he's got the hairpin wrong again. He just got suckered into that one, and that's allowed Chevalier to almost get alongside, but Blumschoen mercifully is just about able to hold on here. Again, that's another crucial mistake for Tobias Blumschoen, who I think is really just starting to run out of front grip at those sort of tight braking zones at this phase.
I didn't quite manage to see whether he avoided a front lockup there, but that is exactly the kind of move that he's been pressuring other drivers, the kind of mistake he's been pressuring other drivers into making so far this race. So he's going to be annoyed that it's the second time that he's fallen foul there. I did just want to note, Walton Attrilla is just slowly beginning to close that gap on Romain Marchand. The last couple of laps, Attrilla has been a few tenths faster. It's nothing massive at the moment. But we'll wait and see how that continues to develop as we get towards the pit stop sequence.
Interestingly, by the way, the man who pit 10 minutes into the race, Lexi Taylor, how is he doing in the hypercar field? Be interesting to see. He's still 9th then, about 41 seconds ahead of Maxime Barbier there. But Lexi Taylor, of course, with that early stop, will be able to run 10 minutes longer than anybody else at this phase. So despite the fact that he is, let's have a look, 91 seconds. He has been closing on BGR a little bit. It was about 98 seconds, I think, just after he pit, essentially, and cleared the duty-free traffic. And he has been showing some good pace here on slightly fresher tyres. He's in a position where he might be able to gain some ground then, depending on how close he can get. But I think he may have had to repair some damage, which is why he came in so early on then. So there are a couple of hypercars doing something a little bit different strategically. But meanwhile, all the GT3s, I think they'll be stretching as long as possible to try and get that fuel tank, but to go as long as they can into the race. But they are starting to run a little bit on fumes here, and Marin Bessier, I think, is going to be very, very conscious of that.
Yeah, these GT3 cars, you can get closer to that kind of 50-minute mark out of a fuel tank if you're doing your fuel saving very economically. So there is a chance that we could see someone attempt a one-stop. We might get more. It really depends how much these front runners have been able to fuel save whilst having these incredible battles that we've been seeing so far. But just keep that in mind. There is a chance that someone in the GT3 field could try for a one-stop if they believe that they've got the fuel management necessary.
And there's Lucas Korsch. He was 8 tenths slower than Marin Bessier last lap around. You can see 3.7 seconds behind, so he's been thereabouts with that second place battle, but he's not really been making too many inroads as Korsch. So again, the consistency is helping out here as he sees, the number 99 does lock up into that hairpin, which shows you just how much he is using then. That's, of course, Barbier, of course, recovering from that early spin that cost him so much ground in the race. And look at this, Bessier trying to make an impact here with the back of Masic Kaspersik then through Cunningham Corner. Now towards Tower Corner they come. Bessier again tries to swing for on the outside, but that's surely going to mean he has to brake and get wide at the apex there as they let the lapped car through again of Barbier. But again,
yeah, I'm not sure if Romain Marchand has the stream on in the background, but that swing of pace has gone back in his favour again. The last couple of laps, just a couple of tenths faster than Walton Attrilla. So whether he's got the stream on and has decided to show me what my words actually mean, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, a little bit of a response there from the Toyota.
He's given you a bit of a hurry up, hasn't he? So you've
yeah,
given him a hurry up, sorry. But I mean, can a driver tell a commentator to say nice things about them while driving? I suppose it is possible, but
I don't know. If it is, then he's absolutely done that, because I don't know if he's heard me and has gone, well, I'll show you, Ollie. I can be faster if I need to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Blumschein's progress has been halted a bit. He's really starting to worry about Chevalier 4 tenths behind rather than Attrilla, who's a second and a half ahead of him. Then that battle continuing there. But Bessier, this could be his best shot once again of getting through at this phase where the pit stop's about to happen. Is he going to try and run long, like you say, stretch the fuel tank more towards 50 minutes, or is he going to try and undercut Kasperzik here? This is make up your mind time in terms of strategy, because this is going to define all of their races, essentially.
Yeah, Bessier obviously has the advantage of being in the slipstream, which means that his fuel number is naturally going to be better than the BMWs in front. But it's about whether he decides that that's the way he wants to go. And I think if he decides that that's the way he wants to go now, then he needs to make that call sooner rather than later. I don't think he can leave it too close to the pit stops to decide whether he's going to save or not, as Blumschein gets airborne out of turn 1 there, rejoining. Still stays ahead of Chevalier, but that was mighty impressive from the BMW, man. All 4 tyres off the ground.
Yeah, it really has all been about Tobias Blumschein then in this race so far, hasn't it? Up and down the Hypercar pack then as Chevalier continues to close in, but with 1 hour elapsed then, now might be, oh, not quite yet, because Blumschein makes another mistake through the hairpin as a slightly sluggish exit. You see the windscreen wipers starting to move as well. We are actually seeing moisture fall on Sebring International Raceway again, just like we saw in Pro some weeks ago then. So this is really, really risky, and this is why a lot of our drivers may have been holding out, delaying a pit stop until this point, because they knew it was about 50-50, 50-40 sort of chance of rain at this phase of the race, wasn't it? And it's starting to fall. So now this makes things even more critical. Do they wait it out until the rain gets really bad to pit to the wet tires, or do they pit knowing the fuel can't go any longer for the wets and then have to sort of brave it out when the track isn't quite ready for the wets just yet?
It's going to be really difficult. It is all going to be about the fuel number. Realistically, for these drivers, they're going to pit, I reckon, when the fuel runs out. Obviously, you have to pit before the fuel runs out. I'm sounding a little bit like Will Buxton here. But I think for these drivers, it is going to be a case of running until the fuel is dry and then pitting onto the wet tyres, whether the track's ready for it or not. They know that that's where the track state is going to end up if we've got rain, and probably increasing rain coming for the last hour of this race.
That should leave with even more chaos than we've seen before, as Bessier breaks super late into the hairpin, almost gets a wheel alongside. Oh, off track goes Message Kasperzik there, and he's almost going to have to compromise his exit, and round the outside goes Marin Bessier. They bang doors into each other. Bessier is not going to let this one go without a fight. Now the rain is falling. It is absolutely hammer and tongs between these two. Bessier still there around the outside fantastically. They bump and barge. Bessier not happy about being run out of room there at Cunningham Corner.
Yeah, again, I think that's a really borderline incident. You know, with these GT3 cars, there is a little bit of grace room for rubbing his racing. So we'll see the outcome of that one.
What I've noticed, Marchand has actually dropped about 3 seconds to Trilly. He's only 1 second ahead now. So as the rain is starting to fall, maybe this is not Romain Marchand's favoured conditions as well. He wasn't particularly great in the rain at Monza, and I think he was sort of hoping it would go away. He's just looking a bit more ragged then. He was starting to look in control of this race, and now Watson, Triller and Blumschein and Chevalier. It's a four-way fight once again. Hypercars have given us such a fantastic show, haven't they? After Mikołaj Hrušky, all they used to do is just not show up, and all of a sudden we've got a fantastic race on our hands.
Maybe we should just bump into the Pro Series for the rest of the season, and we'll keep having these brilliant battles at the top end of the Contender Series.
I feel like he would complain about being denied some prize money there if that cost him.
I'm sure he would. But yeah, that Toyota in the hands of Marchand looking less and less happy as the rain continues to fall. Massive moment out of turn 1 there. Properly having to gather up that Toyota. And off track now.
And he takes to the grass then, as this allows Walton Triller. His eyes will be absolutely lighting up, but it looks like Romain Marchand maybe pushing to build a gap. It's just running out of tyres then as we go into 56 minutes left to go in this race. There's the steering looking buckled there. Maybe Roman Marchand has made contact with GD3 while trying to lap it, or he's potentially hit the wall at the final corner, as we saw him do in practice as well. But the car not steering in a particularly straight line, and the wheel looking bent at a sort of 45-degree angles. Marin Basir again attacks Masic Kasperzik. The brakes glowing orange into Cunningham corner, and again Kasperzik just tries to hold the middle of the road, push Marin Basir as wide as he dares, but Basir is through and back up the inside immediately comes Masic Kasperzik, but that's going to compromise his exit through Tower Corner, and the leaders in Hypercar are about to lap both of them, and it's going to be 3 wide then into Le Mans. This is a nightmare situation for Roman Marchand as a Triller follows him through. The two class leaders side by side. Kasperzik back up the inside as they go into Le Mans, and now Blumschein dies for the pit lane because he did not want to be held up any longer in that, and it's going to be Chevalier that has to watch the two squabble in front of him as again Kasperzik tries to get alongside, but he's not quite able to do so before Sunset Bend. What a fantastic duel there, and it's Blumschein that's blinking first then.
Yeah, and I can reveal that it was contact with the wall for Marchand coming in to turn 2. He's had another off-track moment, but this time he's gone all the way to the WeatherTech tyre barriers and has hit, I mean, it's a big hit on that right-hand side for Marchand, which is why we now see him falling down the order with that damage.
Well, he's just got to fight for survival here, and it's Tobias Blumschein potentially pulled a blinder here. We'll have to see what tyres he goes for. Is he still in the pit lane? He's going for the wets here, so it's typical Tobias Blumschein strategy, taking the risk. There's Marchand desperately tries to hold on to the lead, and Kasperzik has just retaken second, as you saw through Sunset Bend from Marin Basir here, but now Walter Netrilla has got the run, ran the outside. How hard will Roman Marchand defend the lead here? He's going to try and force Walter Netrilla out wide. The second Toyota Chevalier is going to get involved in this as well. This is knife edge, wheel to wheel stuff, and any wrong move now could be spell disaster for all 3 of these drivers then as they come through to lap GD3 leader Jeremy Leitas has had a relatively sedate Friday night drive, hasn't he, in front. It's certainly Valentine's Day for him as they all have to go all around to the outside through the S's towards Tower Corner there, and still Roman Marchand holding onto the lead by the skin of his teeth, but he's just holding Walter Netrilla up, and Netrilla is very aware of that. Will he dive for the pits now, seeing what Blumschein did the lap before?
I think these guys are going to be very, very aware of the fact that every second that they spend behind Marchand going at such a low speed is going to cost them time, and I think Chevalier is incredibly aware of that as he's the next man down pit lane from this leading pack.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where Blumschein and Chevalier filter out relative to one another. Blumschein's going in 8th now, 29 seconds behind is now Triller, makes a bid up the inside into Sunset. He's trying to take the lead. Can Roman Marchand fight against this? He's going to be stranded on the outside. He has to back off, and Triller takes the lead then with 52 minutes left to go, but these two cars are clearly running on fumes right now. They're heading for the pit lane sooner rather than later. Sobers has also joined Chevalier in the pits then.
Yeah, a really crucial move for Walter Netrilla there. The sooner he could get past Roman Marchand, the better for his race. He's now going to really have to push these next couple of laps, or just the next lap before he comes into the pit lane, to try and recover any time that he might have lost to Blumschein for having just been sat behind that damaged Toyota for the last couple of laps.
We see the GD3's pit as well. Chevalier about to exit the pit lane. There's a yellow flag somewhere out on track. But of course it's Leitas and Basir that have pit, but it is Korsch and who am I thinking of? It's it's a Masic Kasperzik, of course, who has stayed out then. So maybe he was saving fuel, and that was why he was losing a little bit of ground there. But it's gone a little bit crazy now. Marchand now drops to a 2.5 seconds behind Walter Netrilla. There is Tobias Blumschein then, and is he going to come out behind then Ivan Chevalier? Chevalier, I think, had a quicker pit stop actually. May have stuck with the same tyres, and he is about 12 seconds ahead of Tobias Blumschein there. So both of them pitting for fuel, but different tyre choices between the pair of them. Blumschein on the wets. I believe Chevalier, yep, still on the dries.
That is a brave call from Chevalier there. We will wait and see whether that one turns out right. They've all still got their wipers on. So I'm not sure. I don't think it has, because Chevalier's just gone off track at turn 2, managing to avoid the wall, but a very similar off track as to what Marchand has had just a couple of laps ago.
Oh dear, the Toyotas then in the wars, but Marchand is desperately going to try and hold it out there. Sobers is doing the same strategy as Tobias Blumschein there. Let's see if the BMWs can make it work for them. Bugiera is pitting from 8th just behind him. Look how wide Chevalier is having to go through the hairpin. Blumschein is surely going to catch him sooner rather than later. As into the pits from 3rd goes Olivier Demolians then. So it looks like Demolians is once more sort of doing that same strategy in Monza, staying out, pitting later in the race so he can briefly run in the podium positions here. We see Kaspersik and Korsch also pitting, so surely they are coming in for wets too, much like Jeremy Leitas and Marin Basir have.
Yeah, and Chevalier still really struggling with that Toyota. He's been snapping left, right and centre, and that gap to Thomas Blumschein has come down by 2 seconds in 2 sectors so far this lap.
Yep, still 15 minutes left to go. Anything could happen. Here's
off track again.
Chevalier is struggling to keep on track. He gambled that it would start to dry out, that the rain would go away. That's not happening at the minute. He needs it to stop raining immediately now for this strategy to work. Otherwise, he may have to put his tail between his legs and come back into the pits then for a set of wet tyres. So there we go, 50 minutes remaining, and it is a Triller that leads Marchand by 14 seconds. It's a Marchand dropping like a stone, but a Triller is doing a fantastic job just to keep it pointing in the right direction then. So that Ferrari somehow able to survive on dry tyres on a slipperier and slipperier track then. Melistas is staying out. Chevalier now only 10 seconds ahead of Blumschein, but Blumschein, as you say, about 2 seconds a lap faster then. So this is a matter of how quickly can Blumschein catch those airs, and it's a Triller's coming in then. So surely he's got to go for wets now, and he'll have to see where he comes out relative to Blumschein. Blumschein may have called this perfectly.
And I think the big difference that we saw there between Walton and Triller and Chevalier is the tyre temperature. Chevalier obviously coming back out on track from being stationary in the pit lane. Those slick tyres are going to have been cold as anything, and the wet weather is not going to have helped heat those back up, whereas the Triller's tyres were still very warm from when the track was in a slick state, and I expect that's what's helped the Ferrari man keep that car on track.
As for Marchand, he's got heavy damage from the steering angle, hasn't he? He's surely got to repair that, because otherwise the rest of the 45 minutes he's got to do in this race are going to be extremely painful. But the problem with that is he's just going to have a very long stop if he does that.
Yeah, I think you've got to do the long. Oh, hello. That was very, very deep for Tobias Blumschein there. He's not looking massively happy on those wet tyres. Maybe just taking a couple of laps to adapt as he runs his kind of first wet race laps around Sebring in that BMW.
It could be that Blumschein is pipped for the wets maybe a lap or two earlier than he really wanted to, because he couldn't get the fuel to last. In now. Oh! And is that is that Jevan Chevalier coming in again, is it, potentially?
It is indeed.
It was Marchand who pit earlier, so this is Chevalier having to pit for wets then. So the game is up. Tobias Blumschein is at least going to get onto the podium here, but he's going to be behind Walton Triller ahead, though. It looks like Marchand did decide to repair the damage then, and that's why he's still stationary in the pits then. So Tobias Blumschein now 10 seconds behind Walton Triller here, but Triller has got the same issue that Blumschein had of just having to adapt on some pretty cold tyres here. So this is where Triller will be tested then. Everything looks pretty solid so far as he just keeps within track limits at turn 1 then. But the order is very, very mixed up. Sobers has actually jumped both of the Toyotas to get up to 3rd. He's only 7 seconds behind Blumschein. So Sobers, who got so cruelly disconnected at Fuji while running 3rd, is now got another shot at a podium here. So this has been a fantastic drive for him. And if anything, he's starting to catch Blumschein.
Yeah, those last couple of laps for Walton Triller before he came into the pit lane were still faster than Blumschein's first out laps on those wet tyres. Obviously, the wet tyres will have been cold, which won't have been helping the lack of grip. So it will be interesting to see whether Blumschein kind of closes back up, considering that his wet tyres are now going to be nice and warm and grippy in this situation compared to Walton Triller's.
But he's in the BMW, which we know is a little bit different in terms of its characteristics compared to the Ferrari in terms of heating up its tyres. Remember the early pro rounds, Spa in particular, we saw at the very, very start of that race, as we see Rooster Tail starting to pop up on stream as well. So that really shows you just how damp it's getting out there. And you've got to feel Ivan Chevalier will be kicking himself for not going for the wets here. He gambled thinking that he could outsmart everyone and second guess the weather. and it is backfired spectacularly. He's down to 6th now, 5 seconds behind the other Toyota of Melistus, who, like Sobers and Demolians, has called it perfectly and profited as a result.
Yeah, I think there is a silver lining to the cloud for Chevalier here, which is that if you're looking at the size of grid that we've got... Oh!
Good save, but yeah, that's not going to help his cause whatsoever.
I believe that was Costas Melista. Was it Costas? Yes, it was. That was Costas that was sideways, not Chevalier there.
Well, we got 3 number 8 Toyotas in a row, so there's nothing really other than...
No, it's difficult to separate them, absolutely.
But anyway, good save nonetheless from Melistas, who you wouldn't expect to be running in the top 5 at this race, because Costas Melistas, his best result so far, he's in 15th in the championship. His best result was 10th in the opener. Other than that, he's got 2 11th places to his name. So he's in for a lot of points here, Melistas, in the Contender Championship. As we look at Demolians, also on for a huge amount of points here in the top 4 then. Olivier Demolians, of course, who another R Factor 2 regular. I made a after he nearly got taken out in the closing stages of the Contender round at Monza. I think I made a sort of he nearly demolished Demolians sort of pun there, but yeah, Olivier is actually a pretty clean driver, the Frenchman on the whole. So and he's certainly proving it today. He likes to see what everyone else does in the strategy and then decide what to do himself. He doesn't tend to lead the strategy, but yeah, certainly he's made it work for him today. He's been very, very sensible and profited where others have made mistakes of their own making and of others as well, in the form of Paul Leclerc being hit by Tobias Blumschein and then the Toyotas getting it wrong essentially on tyre strategy and hitting the wall. That's allowed him to get into this position. So let's recap the order then very briefly before I let you talk, Ollie. So Jeremy Lighter leading by 6 seconds then over Marin Besser, who's still a second, 1.3 seconds ahead of Masic Kasperzik. Lucas Korsch is 4th, 16 seconds down on the lead, and then a lap down is Rumba Bears in 5th, Gustav Schubert in 6th, and Jerome Mitral rounding up the rear in 7th. Walter Natrilla is looking good for his first win of the season so far. 12 seconds out of Tobias Blumschein, who's continued to drop down. Sachin Sobers, 6 seconds down on Blumschein in 3rd. So it's a BMW 2-3 at the moment. Olivia Demolins, we see on track in the background, 38 seconds in arrears. In 4th, then it's Costas Melistas in 5th. Yvan Chevalier in 6th after gambling on the dries in wet conditions. And it's Romain Marchand, who's recovered from his damage, in 7th. Yanis Bugiera a lap down in 8th, with Lexi Taylor recovering from his early collision in 9th, trying to catch Bugiera. Then Maxime Barbier is having the most difficult race of all of them, rounding out the top 10, 2 laps down then, but no reason to give up just yet, with a crucial point up for grabs there. So anyway, Ollie, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that BMW 2-3 that we see at the moment, Blumschein and then Sobers, I think there's a possibility that there's going to be a switch coming there. Sobers at the moment, on laps where they're both clear of any traffic, is running between kind of a second and a half faster than Blumschein at the moment. So we'll wait and see whether he's able to catch up. The last couple of laps, Blumschein has been in the 2-minute zeros, and we've seen Sobers running 58.3, 59.4. So there's time in that car for Sobers right now.
Yeah, and a reminder, in terms of the fight for second in the Hypercar Championship, Paul Leclerc to Tobias Blumschein, equal on points at the moment. Walter Natrilla and Tobias Blumschein equal on points, I should say, 30 points each, with Paul Leclerc on 33. So it looks like Paul Leclerc will have to fall back on that 3rd place from the Algarve as well. So yeah, if Blumschein finishes 3rd, he's going to find himself just equal with Paul Leclerc, fighting over 3rd rather than fighting Walter Natrilla for 2nd in the Hypercar Championship. So it really is between those 3 behind Mikolaj Hrushky in the fight for that order, with Romain Marchand, I think, the big loser with that contact. Despite that pole position, Marchand is now looking at trying to overtake his fellow Toyotas to get back into the top 5 here. But yeah, Walter Natrilla is just streaking away at the moment, doing an absolutely superb job in this race. He did exactly what you said he should have done, Ollie, which is not panic in the first phase of the race, pace himself, and then when the rain started to fall, he pit after Blumschein and then just extended the gap back out again.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to claim that I helped or anything, but no, I
didn't claim you did. I'm just saying it was the right call.
No, absolutely. Yeah, Walton and Triller definitely making the right call there. And the other driver that I just wanted to point out as having a pretty good run at the moment is Ivan Chevalier. Now that he's changed onto those wet tyres, he is closing that gap to the other number 8 Toyota of Kostas Melistas relatively quickly. So it could be back up into the top 5 for Chevalier before the end of this race, which would be a good recovery from that mistake on tyres that he made in that first pit stop round.
This is still Jan Trelli's only his second appearance as well in Contender. He has been very, very impressive so far, hasn't he? Especially in qualifying. Yeah, a couple of interesting strategy calls here and at Monza, with staying out on the wets on a dry track at Monza, and then switching to dry, keeping on the dries, I should say, to try and gain track position with the rain continuing to fall down, which was a risky call here. But yeah, certainly he could still do some damage limitation and get into the top 5. It's certainly not within the realms of possibilities. There's a yellow flag somewhere out on track ahead of him. Sobers is only... Oh, he's right behind Blumschein. He's ahead. Tobias Blumschein, I think, has dropped it somewhere. So you are absolutely right there. Through the middle sector, Tobias has had even more issues. And you got to feel his composure in the rain is not quite as strong as we saw. Even though there are a few mistakes in the dry, he wasn't losing quite as much time as we're seeing now. And Walton Atrillo will be laughing all the way to the bank with 40 minutes left on the clock, because he's now 20 seconds clear of the next car. Sobers getting a lucky break there. Now looking at his best ever result so far in Contender. But Tobias Blumschein keen to get back into second position and match his best result from Fuji, of course. He'll certainly be fired up to do so, but has he, having pit first, chewed through the wet tyres at this point?
I think there is a chance that those couple of laps that he did before anyone else came into the pit lane have kind of ripped through the blocks that we have on these wet tyres and is causing them to have less performance early in this stint. I'm sure he's going to be hoping that he'll be able to hang on to them for the rest of the stint, but yeah, I think those couple of laps have done more damage than we initially realised.
Yeah, oh, look at the rear end, absolutely complaining into turn 1, and will Tobias Blumschein have to make a late sort of either a splash and dash, because of course he wouldn't have been able to take on or run the fuel as long as everyone else in that first pit stop. He might know he has to pit again before the end of this race, and that gap to Demoliens could suddenly become a lot more important. So suddenly Olivier Demoliens could be potentially looking at a podium here if he's got the strategy right, whereas Tobias Blumschein is looking ever so slightly compromised at this point in the race now.
Yeah, I mean, for Demoliens, that would be absolutely huge for his championship, and I mean, it really shows just how unpredictable things can be in this form of racing. All it's taken for Blumschein is to be pitting 2 laps too early, 2 or 3 laps too early, and suddenly he's gone from just running deep everywhere for Blumschein. And
it's Melista, sorry, that went off at I think turn 2 there. And
oh wow. Blumschein must have had a moment at exactly the same time, because I was watching him live when he went deep as well. So a little bit of synchronized mistakes from the cars currently running P3 and P6.
Yeah, but the pressure will only grow on Blumschein. He's at Melissa's with a lot of damage. The way he's crawling around there. Roman Marchand is going to catch right up to the back of him. There he is, just in the foreground. And surely he's going to be able to get his way up to 6th position. So a Wonka man who knows everything about him to drive, hold the lead of all that damage. And he did well to hold on from Matrotto as long as he did. But through he goes. Nothing Costas Melistas can do on this occasion. And potentially that is going to allow Bugiera into the top 7 here. As Melistas is, I think, the 3rd or 4th hypercar to be hit trouble and take a lot of damage in this race then, as we look now. Oh, big spin for Demoliens then at Le Mans. And that's not going to help his cause. So Blumschein, he's going to be thinking about, it's going to look more and more attractive. He's got a nearly 30-second gap in which he can pit for a fresh set of wets in. And that could be a way for him to put pressure on Sobers. I think Atrilla is just too good at tyre preservation to really challenge at this phase. But he might be able to essentially undercut Sobers if he pits really early, maybe for another set of tyres to get to the end here.
Yeah, so it was contact with the wall for Kostas Melistas there. He got it all wrong into turn 2, a rear snap, and found himself in the same tyre barrier as has already claimed one of his other Toyota number 8 cars so far this race.
Yeah, certainly Marchand. This time the beneficiary rather than the man losing out due to accident damage. But yeah, he focuses now his attention on the other number 8 Toyota of Chevalier, 7.8 seconds up the road then. So Demolian, Chevalier, and Marchand could be a very, very close battle, especially if Demolian keeps making mistakes here. He's not looking as comfortable in that fourth position as he did a few laps ago. Meanwhile, Marin Becerra, we didn't talk much about this, but he has actually been able to undercut Kasperzik in the pit stops. So by pitting a lap earlier, he's been able to come out 1.4 seconds ahead. So Kasperzik has now got the mission to do. He's got to make that move for what feels like the third time in this race in the battle for second. But Jeremy Leitas just continues to stretch his legs, although he's only 1.1 seconds ahead. So Leitas, I think, has lost time somewhere. So all of a sudden, we're looking at a three-way fight for the GT3 lead now that the Hypercar lead has ballooned out. Look at Becerra absolutely dragging the rear end of that car through Sunset Bend as he tries to put Jeremy Leitas under pressure for the first time in this race as the Hypercar leader comes through to lap him.
Yeah, Jeremy Leitas, just looking at his lap times, is kind of a second a lap slower than both of the cars behind him, obviously Becerra and Kasperzik respectively. So, massively sideways for Leitas there. That is not going to be helping his course to try and stay at the front of this race.
Yeah, perhaps Leitas not feeling quite as confident in these tricky conditions here. Could find himself under pressure. Remember, we saw this as well with him and Masic Kasperzik, wasn't it, last round at Monza, where Leitas actually started on the dry tyres, but then was overtaken in the latter stages of the race by Kasperzik for that final spot on the podium. So we could be about to see a rerun of that, except Becerra in the mix now as well. Oh, big crash! And that's Schubert that's been hit. Is that Roomba Bears or Schubert that's just been collected by the Toyota in the background? Is that Yvan Chevalier that's hit him? I believe it is. Oh, so Roman Marchand up to 5th, and Chevalier, he's had a messy race, hasn't he? He just went straight into the back of that number 70 Inception McLaren and has had huge damage. That's race ending, surely.
Yeah, it looks like Chevalier is going to be returning to garage here, which means that is race over for him. He's going to be gutted by that. I'm just going to have a little spy of the replay, see if I can spot what has gone on here for Chevalier that's caused that racing and ending incident. Yeah,
I think it may have been Bob Ayers then that was taken out there, not Gustav Schubert, because it looks like, Bob Ayers. No! Oh dear, what happened? Ollie?
Chevalier is not at fault at all. The number 70 Inception McLaren is spun out of the final corner already, gets moving again and collects the innocent Toyota as he's coming past. Oh, Chevalier is going to be gutted by that.
Bob Ayers then. That's a real shame for Bears. But meanwhile, our three GT3 leaders converging within a second of each other. Jeremy Leitas under huge pressure as they go towards turn 1 then with 33 minutes left on the clock. Marin Becerra going around the outside. Which of these two is going to take their first win of the season then? The lights shining on the spray coming out the back of the Ferrari and the McLaren there. Leitas on the inside has the lead off the front, and Becerra goes around the outside and takes the lead then into turn 2, and now it's Kasperzik's turn to put pressure on the front, but Becerra goes too deep, goes off and loses that lead again. So Jeremy Leitas back in the class lead in GT3. This is nip and tuck stuff. Everybody squabbling away like small children in a playground for the lead of this one, Ollie, but this could go any of 3 ways at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot disagree at all. We said at the start of the race that it could go any way. Jeremy Leitas, through that first stint, showed us that actually he was in control, but now it's back to being anyone's game again.
Yeah, it's actually Kasperzik who pit a lap later than these two, who might have the tyres in the best condition. But side by side, Becerra is going around the outside again of Jeremy Leitas. And Leitas, as Becerra defends now into Cunningham Corner, is surely going to lose the lead this time around. And he's knocked down to second in class then. So Kasperzik now needs to clear Leitas quickly. He wants to stop Marin Becerra disappearing into the distance. But Jeremy Leitas not saying die at all, as we've got 3 different manufacturers with completely different cars here. They're all as one on track here in the lead of this race with 31 minutes left to go. What a fantastic duel here as the BMW getting horribly held up. I think that's Sobers trying to lap Kasperzik here, and now he's got to lap Jeremy Leitas and Marin Becerra too in quick succession.
Yeah, the last thing you want to see as a hypercar trying to lap GT cars is 2 or 3 cars having a really intense battle,
Whoa.
because it only makes it scarier.
And here comes Kasperzik, got a much better run at the final corner than Jeremy Lighthouse towards Sunset Bend. Surely the BMW, with its amazing straight line speed, or the Ferrari's no slouch for that matter, is going to get ahead. And there's the Blumscheid. They have to leave just enough space for the Hypercar coming through behind them. And again, he comes upon Kasperzik at exactly the wrong moment. Does Tobias Blumscheid, but he isn't held up quite as badly as Sachin Sobers, to be fair there, but he gets through unscathed then. So our duty-free lead fight will continue unabated then, and it's Kasperzik now up to second, and it's Bessier versus Kasperzik yet again in this race, but this time for the lead.
Kasperzik looking to the inside towards turn 2, thinks better of it, although Bessier looks like he might have braked too late again. It is a little bit wide for the McLaren. Oh, a little bit of bumping there as he rejoins back over the curbing.
Bessier looks absolutely horrible through turn 2, like he's just hanging on for dear life. And the BMW, by comparison, looking a little bit more planted. Kasperzik, you can tell, has been very, very patient in this duel here, but he can't afford to be too patient because Lighthouse will be just diving back up the inside if given half a chance here. He's certainly not giving up on retaking the lead, as again Bessier has the block into the hairpin, and the BMW just looking a little bit cagey here. But this has been an absolutely excellent fight here, and it's certainly the closest one on track, with the Hypercars just starting to spread out here. Blumscheid about 3.3 seconds behind Sachin Sobers, and you've got Marchand starting to close on Demolians in the fight for fourth. Just 5 seconds is the gap there. But as we run by Jeremy Lighters, look at Kasperzik with the spray hitting up, even with the fresher wet tires. Kasperzik is just absolutely in danger of flying off track if he's not careful here. So it's absolutely wonderful car control from all three in incredibly challenging conditions here, with visibility starting to disappear by the lap.
Yeah, I expect for Kasperzik that was something that was really scary when he had both Bessier and Lighthouse in front of him. There was a couple of points where they were side by side, and no matter where Kasperzik went on track, it was just a wall of spray. So really impressive from these guys to be able to keep the racing so clean under those conditions.
Yeah, less than 30 minutes on the clock then, and Walter Trillo, the Finn, 22 and a half seconds ahead of Sachin Sobers then. It's looking good for a first win of the season that could put him well into second in the Hypercar Championship. He's going to go from 4th to 2nd, which is a big gain. Big dive into Sunset from Message Kasperzik there, and he just tries to muscle his way through. That was so nearly him spinning Marin Bessier out if he wasn't careful there, but he judged that really, really well, and just about avoided disaster there. Now he's going up the inside again into the first corner, and this time it's Marin Bessier's turn to sweep across and hold that lead then. And Jeremy Lighthouse knows that as long as these two fight each other, then he can just stay in the slipstream. He's got just a remote chance of challenging for at least second maybe, but it's looking really, really cagey here as Kasperzik just avoids hitting the back of Marin Bessier, who's starting to look that slight bit more confident the longer he stays out in front here. This is just a battle of attrition. Kasperzik trying to wear him down by the lap here.
Yeah, Bessier finally managing to get the front end of that McLaren tucked into the apex of turn 2, which has definitely played a helping hand in him staying ahead of Kasperzik at least this lap. We'll wait and see as this battle continues to unfold. Mistakes coming from both sides, so it's going to be a really close one.
It looks like Kasperzik braking just a little bit later into the hairpin, just to sort of try and put Marin Bessier off here. But the Frenchman, who, of course, made that wrong call on the wets, starting on the wets at Monza. It's gone the exact reverse here. He has played it absolutely brilliantly in getting through into the lead and undercutting Kasperzik, and then passing Jeremy Lighthouse for track position then, as we cut to Marchand, who is making mincemeat out of Olivier Demolians at the moment, 3.5 seconds quicker. So Demolians had a really bad lap last time around, and it's going to take quite the defensive drive here to hold on to 4th position in that Porsche there. So what is Demolians made of, and can he keep the pole sitter at bay after all the drama that Marchand's had to negotiate in this one so far?
Yeah, unfortunately for Demolians, it's not just last lap that he's been having issues with. He's been 2 or 3 seconds, pushing up to 4 seconds a lap slower than Marchand the last couple of times, although obviously Marchand making the mistake in the background there coming through the Le Mans curves.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Basir has pulled 1.6 seconds ahead of Kaspersik then, which is exactly what the 59 McLaren needed to do. Remember, we saw a great drive here in the wet from Kieran Prendergast, and it looks like, as I keep saying, Marin Basir is the Kieran Prendergast of this championship. He drives a McLaren. He's always seems to be fighting on the podium, never quite taking the win until now, though. As we see, the GT3 field has finally caught up to Chevalier in the overall order. So Yvan Chevalier will, of course, be joining Rune Bears and Paul Lepere in our list of retirements then, which is a huge shame. All three of them, I think, could have got big points out of today, especially Paul Lepere, it must be said. And Chevalier, as the Marchand just avoids, I think that's Korsch there, as he tries to lap him into turn 2 and 3. And Korsch just having to avoid a sort of airplane crash there. But Marchand, now he's been a second at Demolians. He's absolutely pulling out all the stops here to try and beat the number 99 Porsche.
Yeah, absolutely. A man on a mission in that Toyota now that he's got the rear end of Demolian's car locked in his sights. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a relatively easy move for Marchand here. He has definitely got the pace over that Porsche at the moment.
Yeah. Fourth would match his best finish of the season from Fuji, but there's a sense definitely of what might have been for Marchand today after that brilliant pole position and that brilliant, first stint, the first 40 minutes or so before the 45 minutes or so before he hit the wall of the final corner. Everything seemed to be going Marchand's way, didn't it? I think he's going to be kicking himself at the end of this one. But nonetheless, you never know what could happen in these final 25 minutes. But certainly fourth would be up for grabs here as long as he can clear Demolians quickly. You could tell Demolians just struggling at this phase. And up the inside as Jeremy Leitus is forced out of the way. Surely that's going to allow Ron Marchand up the inside then as, he tries to turn in from off track there. Does Olivier Demolians. That was a little bit rude, wasn't it? And now he's trying to fight Leitas as well. Leitas was right behind Kaspersik, now falling to 1.7 seconds behind as it's not particularly clean then between Demolians and Marchand there.
Yeah, definitely elbows out there. Possibly a little bit too much. We'll wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if those kind of 10 or 15 seconds of racing end up in the steward's room after the race.
Look how much Demolians is struggling just to keep in a straight line here. But clearly, as you say, he was struggling even before Marchand was starting to catch him. He just does not have the consistency or the raw pace to do much better than fifth at the moment. But now Marchand, fortunately for him, 33 seconds to Tobias Blumschein. So fourth looks like the upper limit of what he can do today then. His best hope is just to pull clear of Demolians and try and stay out of trouble, I think, as we look at Leitas now struggling to keep Masic Kaspersik in sight then. So now he's sort of lost the toe. It looks like he may have to settle for third after leading so much of this race from pole position. So again, our two pole sitters are the ones who've lost out today with the rain, haven't they?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Marion Bessier just pulling away at the moment from Kaspersik. It doesn't look like that BMW really has much left in the tank. The last 2 laps, it's been a second and a half slower a lap for Kaspersik, as we're seeing, as that gap now grows up towards 3 seconds. Bessier just looking really in control of this race at the moment.
Yep, and remember, of course, with it being an endurance round, I think there's a couple more points up for grabs, if I'm not mistaken, in Contender? Or is it just the F1 point system?
I believe there are additional points for the endurance rounds. You will also get you receive an additional point. So every car receives an additional point for finishing. If you take the checkered flag in one of these endurance rounds, you will get an additional point whether you finished in the points paying positions or not. Obviously, in this particular case, any car that finishes the race is going to have finished in the points paying positions. As that is that Lexi Taylor that's gone around, or is it Barbier?
No, it's Barbier. Yeah, so Barbier. It will be glad he gets a point for finishing because he's going to get 2 for 9th at the moment, and that is last of the Hypercar field. And with Lexi Taylor 38 seconds ahead, it's looking less and less likely that he's going to really be able to fight anyone for position in the remaining 22 minutes of this race. Lexi Taylor, though, still a little bit adrift of the next car, which I believe is it Bugiera? If I'm not mistaken, no, it's Melistas, of course. No, actually, he's going to overtake Melistas, isn't he? Because with the rate that he's catching.
Yeah, he's closing up on Melistas very quickly.
Melistas was struggling so much, wasn't he, coming out of the pits on those wet tyres. This would be an amazing recovery from Lexi Taylor, who was what was it, 10th or 9th at the end of the first lap, and had lost a lot of time having pitted within the first 10 minutes. Now on for a good recovery. The only thing that could undo Lexi Taylor is if he's struggling on fuel in these final 20 minutes, because he might be a bit marginal if he hasn't been saving at this point.
Yeah, the other driver that's closing up at the moment is Lucas Korsch towards the back of Jeremy Leitas. It's kind of a second a lap at the moment, if not slightly more. And I mean, I don't want to speak it into existence, but is there a chance that we see Jeremy Leitas going from pole and leading the majority of this race to possibly not even finishing on the podium here at Sebring?
Well, him and Korsch fighting for 4th in the championship at the moment, so I'm sure Lucas Korsch wants to hold on to that top 4 position, and he won't be particularly fussed if he is able to pass Jeremy Leitas. He won't have too much sympathy, at least, whereas Leitas desperate to stay on the podium here, so it's absolutely crucial he does not hemorrhage time in these final 20 minutes. 20 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but the amount of laps you can fit into that on Sebring, that's at least 10 laps, isn't it? So the pressure will start to grow on Leitas then in these closing stages. Blumschein, meanwhile, has fallen to about 6 seconds behind Sobers, so doesn't look like he's going to be able to mount an attack. And now with Marchand within 32 seconds, it's a bit too risky to do a pit stop for a fresh set of wet tyres, unless he's just going to run out of fuel if he doesn't do it.
Yeah, I think the fuel could be really critical for Blumschein here. I think he made that pit stop a couple of laps earlier than the rest of the field. Obviously, he's had the benefit of not being fighting with anyone, so there is a chance that he's been able to fuel save and energy save those couple of...
I should say, and 6 out of our 7 GT3 still going then. Better than some championships I've commentated on, where end of a 24-hour race you've only got 3 people going, all in different classes. But I have commentated on races like that before. But yeah, certainly we've been treated to some excellent entertainment today. And a very, very difficult race to predict, but I think Atrilla was definitely one of the favourites going in, and his experience, his pace, his amazing ability in wheel-to-wheel has definitely come in handy, where he basically outfoxed Blumschein on the strategy and outdid Marchand in the wheel-to-wheel by forcing Marchand into a mistake, essentially. So Atrilla has not really put a foot wrong, and since getting the lead, he has just been absolutely sublime in these wet conditions. It's all played very much into his hands as the lead just grows and grows and grows, and he could well win by over 30 seconds, which I think would match the biggest gap that his title rival Hatrishki got was in Fuji, where he won by, was it 20 seconds? I think it was Fuji and Monza, where he won by 20 and 22 seconds respectively. So yeah, at the moment he's well on course to exceed that.
Yeah, it's been a really, really comfortable drive for Walton Atrilla. Other than that first stint where he was right in the mix of that 4-car battle, since the pit stop he has been in cruise mode. You wouldn't know it from his lap times, but he certainly has been. He knows that he's not got anyone to worry about. He can run his race to the end, and as long as he's hitting his fuel targets and hitting his lap time targets, he's absolutely golden to the end of this race.
Oh, yellow flag somewhere out on track. Oh, was that more trouble for Marchand, I think, at the first corner, and he's slowing right to curl. The rear wing is missing.
He's lost his rear wing.
Oh dear, so reprieve for Demolians. He goes up to 4th, but Marchand has clearly made contact with another car or the wall with just a handful of minutes left to go on the clock, and that's cost the pole sitter dear. That was a good shot at 4th position there, and he probably wasn't going to win even before that happened, but that is a gutting blow for him, isn't it, Ollie?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to have a little bit of a dive into the replay here, see what has happened.
Replays, but the race itself does not. It is interesting.
I'll have a look. Oh, yeah. He's just lost it on the apex of turn 1. He was behind Kostas Melistas. There wasn't contact, but possibly dirty air playing a factor as the rear end snapped away from him, and it was so straight to the outside wall.
Especially in these conditions, you go a little bit offline, yeah, the wheels spin up, and suddenly you're going straight to the scene of accident, because turn 1 is such a high-speed corner, isn't it, in like 3rd gear, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, even in the dry, you can sometimes do that as well in like open wheelers or whatever if you get the line wrong. So, yeah, in such a long race, it's so easy near the end to just fatigue a little bit, and sadly that's what's happened to Marchand then. So 2 big mistakes ending up defining his day and costing him a shot at victory then. But for the Olivier Demolians, he has kept his nose clean despite a little bit of contact with Marchand earlier on. And fourth is going to be his reward for sticking with it, which is great to see for the young Frenchman.
Yeah, Demolians with a really, really tough race. It's been, you know, he was relatively
tough for everyone, to be fair.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't think there's been anyone that has really had a smooth ride. Walton Attrilla probably one of the only ones, I would say, who has kind of just seen his way through all the chaos, as you can see by the fact he now leads by a decent chunk of time, currently about 26 seconds.
Oh, but he goes off track again. Even him pushing that a little bit at Le Mans then, as the tyres just starting to fade with 15 minutes left to go. And yeah, certainly we expect all those that stayed out. And certainly I would think actually, because he's able to extend a bit more, ironically, Lexi Taylor in 7th is the one that's probably doing the best on fuel at the moment, in terms of he's probably got a bit more to play with due to that early stop, because he's basically made 2 stops already, whereas everyone else has just made the 1. But yeah, Costas Melistas only 4 seconds ahead and starting to be caught then as Lexi Taylor. In fact, Melistas had to make 2 stops as well, because I think he was another one like Marchand that gambled on the dries and then had to pit for wets. So Jeremy Leitas is out. Oh, we saw him going into the pits there. Was there potentially damage for Jeremy Leitas? But either way, that hands-furred on a plate to Lucas Korsch there.
You're really disappointing for Jeremy Leitas. I can't help but feel really heartbroken for him to an extent.
Because literally a few minutes after Marchand, he suffered a very, very similar-looking fate, I think, Ollie.
Yeah, as I did with Marchand, I'll have a little dig into the replay, see if I can find out what went on. But to go from the podium and leading the race, pole and leading the race for so long, to potentially looking at losing his podium position to now being out of the race completely, that is a really unfortunate turn of events for Jeremy Leitas. He's just driven it into the pits by himself. I don't know whether something's come up. Didn't look like there was much damage on the car. He was at racing speed. So
maybe something,
I'm not sure what's
under
happened
the
there.
door or something. Or maybe there was some issue that we couldn't see, that's for sure. Maybe the wheel was starting to act up or something. But yeah, either way, I think Leitas and Marchand, have they covered enough distance to get within the last 20 minutes to get the point for finishing at the very least? Oh no, they wouldn't have crossed the line, so they don't get the point, but they might get a couple of points for 9th and last in class and 6th and penultimate last in class as well, effectively. So Trella again goes wide at Le Mans. It's one of those corners you can go wide at because there's plenty of tarmac, but yeah, look at Sobers, of course, extending that gap to Blumschein. He's actually went under the radar on the first stint, but he has actually had, him and Trilla, the two that have had the cleanest races, I think it's fair to say. They've just been absolutely sublime out there. Marin Basir too, I think. And Kaspersik have had an excellent duel for that lead as well, but it looks like the Frenchman is going to prevail there. And yeah, Sachin Sobers quite a way down in the Hypercar Championship, isn't he, in 6th? This could well shoot him into that fight for the top 3.
Yeah, and the car that retirement for Leitas is really going to make a big difference for is Lucas Korsch. Obviously, it moves him up onto the podium, but it also gains him a whole bundle of points in the battle between those two drivers for currently, what is it, 4th in the championship they're fighting for, 3rd?
Yeah, and of course,
remember off the top of my head.
Vasquez Simonian leading at the moment, but because he's not here today, he'll have to default to his 4th from the opener. So that means Korsch, if it comes down to count back, and it may well do with the drop your worst results score rule, then yeah, Korsch was looking good then with that 3rd position, basically by sticking with it. Whereas it looks like, unfortunately, Jeremy Leitas was not able to do so. But yeah, 12 minutes left on the clock then. We're getting towards the end, the closing stages of the 100 minutes of Sebring. And this has certainly been a test of patience and of just ability in the wet as well for a lot of our contender field, who had to deal with the wet in the early stages in Monza, but now they've had a sort of sustained period of it, haven't they? Where they're not going to be saved by gambling on the dries. Oh, as we see big issues here, that's Lexi Taylor in issues, trying to go into the pit lane, and he's collected some cones. He's got it spectacularly wrong here. I think he tried to go in the wrong pit lane.
I think that's absolutely what he's done. He's tried to go into the wrong pit lane, and has he hit the wall? He's crabbing quite significantly. By the looks of things, the rear end of that car is not happy at all.
Yeah, he must have had Oh, he's had he didn't try and get into pits. He binned it before then at Sunset Bend then. By going, I think, just a bit too long to the corner to the outside. And that potentially has cost him not only a shot at Melistas, but we've got to think a little bit further back is Maxime Barbier, only about less than 20 seconds down the road. So Lexi Taylor has got huge damage here. I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to the 7th position in the final 11 minutes. So the minute you get comfortable and think, well, that's all we've got to look forward to, there's suddenly some late drama here. And Lexi Taylor, oh, that car, he may even have to park that up because it just looks so difficult to drive here. It's more than 45-degree angle. He's having to do that steering to keep it in a straight line. So then, into the hairpin he comes. And Maxime Barbier within 10 seconds now. This is going to be one of the easiest moves that Maxime Barbier has ever made. But he's got to make sure he doesn't hit Lexi Taylor. Lexi Taylor, who's just had not the best of luck this season, it must be fair to say. Certainly had more than his fair share of incidents in these first 5 rounds. But through he comes then. Oh, yeah, 4 rounds. Round the outside goes the class leader. Maxime Barbier now within 2 seconds. Sobers is continuing to extend to Tobias Blumschein, but it looks like this might be the final move we see in the race then. Maxime Barbier needs to give Lexi Taylor a wide berth. He slows right down, actually. Decides not to take any risks then in that number 99 as he tries to lap the Joda. Lexi Taylor, oh, just the Englishman fighting to keep it in a straight line, but there we go. Maxime Barbier gratefully inherits 7th then, and Barbier, who had a horrible first lap, fell to the very back of the grid behind all the duty-frees even, shows exactly that you should never, ever give up. Into the pits again. This time comes Lexi Taylor trying to repair the damage and at least get the points for 8th position to at least get something out of this race, because it is very much not gone to plan for the Englishman.
Yeah, really unfortunate string of events there for Lexi Taylor. Obviously, picking up that damage and then trying to get into the wrong pit lane has cost him some time. I'm not sure whether he was actively trying to get into the wrong pit lane or if the kind of damage caused him to veer off track and take out those cones. But yeah, just getting to the end of the race, picking up the few points that he can, and the bonus point for taking the checkered flag will be really important for him now.
Yeah, Lexi Taylor 7th in the championship, of course, behind Sachin Sobers, but also behind Roman Marchand, who retired as well, and behind Paul Lepere. So there's every chance Lexi Taylor, if he has a stronger second half of the season, could get himself into that mix for the podium. But certainly he needs a bit of better luck, that's for sure. But a man who has made his own luck today very much has been Walter Natrilla in that Ferrari. It's going to be the first time, I think, that we see a Ferrari win in the VMS Championship. It should really have been Algarve when he convincingly held off Petrushki for a lot of that race until a mistake into the hairpin there with just a handful of laps left to go. But nonetheless, Petrushki has been so dominant so far this season that Triller has been given a golden opportunity in that yellow Ferrari to take a first win. He's grabbed it with both hands here, and I think he's one of the few that could potentially put a challenge to Petrushki over the course of the rest of the season. But he's going to need to start winning more consistently and hope he makes this a habit rather than a one-off just because of Petrushki's absence.
Yeah, for Walter Natrilla, it's going to be a really important race for his championship. Obviously, he's been there or thereabouts a couple of times so far, but to finally get that win under his belt will hopefully be the beginning of the momentum that he needs to stay inside those guaranteed promotion spots at the very top of the table.
Exactly. So, 7.5 minutes left on the clock then. Walter Natrilla should be able to get about 3 more laps out of this one as Lexi Taylor finally exits the pits, a whole lap down now of Maxime Barbier. So Lexi Taylor's best hope now is that Barbier has another big off. But knowing that Lexi Taylor's handed that with 7 minutes left on the clock, you've got to think Barbier can sort of tiptoe around and come home in a marvelous, miraculous recovery of a 7th position. But this is sort of what you got to do in wet conditions at Sebring. It's so tricky to not make mistakes. So if you've got that kind of gap, you can sort of afford to play it safe here.
Yeah, I expect that will be playing on the mind of Maxime Barbier. Obviously, one of the really difficult things with letting off is that sometimes by not driving at the limit, you cause yourself to have lapses in concentration. So it's a difficult balancing act between pushing flat out and risking having mistakes because of that, or lifting off too much and risking having mistakes because you're not being required to concentrate at 100%. I'm sure he'll be able to find a balancing act between those two to come home in that seventh
another
position.
Toyota in trouble. It's Melistas. And yeah, he was about 38 seconds ahead of Barbier, wasn't he? So he's lost nearly 9 seconds there with his big spin there at Le Mans, the chicane just before the Ullman straight then. And all of a sudden, could Maxime Barbier potentially steal sixth? But these Toyotas just cannot get to the end of this one without hitting trouble, because all of them have to struggle ever since the rain hit.
Yeah, Kostas Melistas that time deciding not to come into the pit lane, which I would assume he's managed to mean that he's been able to keep it out of the wall. Indeed, he has. A little bit of rear wheel spin to be able to make sure that was a certainty for Kostas Melistas. But no contact with the wall there, so only the inevitable flat spots that will now be on those tyres from going sideways across track rather than forwards.
Yep. Meanwhile, GD3, Kaspersik still keeping Basia honest to the tune of 5.5 seconds. But Basia has just looked in command, has just looked in control. And Kaspersik has still had a good performance, but now they're not sort of bottlenecked behind Jeremy Lightass. Oh, look how much he's trying to push as he goes off track. So you certainly can't fault Kaspersik for giving it absolutely everything today, but it's going to have to be second position behind that McLaren then. So this time, after beating him at Monza, it's Basia that comes off the victor this time around in terms of the strategy. And Kaspersik, who won, of course, the opening round of the season, will have to go back to the drawing board. And, of course, if Vaskin Simonian returns, it could well be difficult for Kaspersik to win again. But he did prove that he could do it at the Algarve. Of course, we'll have to see next week at Spa-Francorchamps whether Kaspersik can fight back. But certainly him and Basia put on a good show today. There was some good moves from Kaspersik and some good counter moves from Basia to sort of fight back from that.
Yeah, I think it will be really interesting to see when Vaskin Simonian returns to the championship, having had this week out. He's going to be in a very, very different position championship-wise to where he was at the end of last round with the results that we're getting today. He's going to find himself much closer to that battle for the top 3 positions than he currently is. He's currently checked out at the top of the championship. It's by 10 or 12 points, if my memory serves correctly. So he's got a nice cushion, but at the end of this race, that cushion is going to rather rapidly disappear if things stay how they are in LMGT3 at the moment.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting French chat in the race because Romain Marchand and Ivan Chevalier are out of the race. They've decided to give their thoughts. Ivan Chevalier says, "Stupid driver, I lost my race." So, yeah, definitely he was a bit unlucky to come upon Arun Babers when he did. But, yeah, Paul Babers, you've got to feel for him because he didn't want to spin and cause a big accident with the Hypercars either. It was just a really unfortunate situation for both parties there. Clueless Gamer says, "That's the no-quit spirit, Lexi Taylor." So that is great to see as well. Kaspersik just trying to go as wide at the hairpin as he can. We have Romain Marchand giving some more thoughts. Atrilla, intractable. Not the fastest, but the smartest and most consistent. I think qualifying in the races have bared that out as well. He also says, "I have more fast to Atrilla in race." So he was faster than him. But Blumschein is so hot driving. So that's not a description of Blumschein being an attractive man, although I'll leave that to everyone else to decide. That is purely his driving being pretty hot stuff, even in these wet conditions then. But certainly Blumschein was the danger man early on, and now he's fallen to about 11 seconds behind Sabers. But still another podium for Tobias after all the bad luck at Monza. This is still going to be a better result, even though he is going to feel it was really the turning point for him as he laps Lexi Taylor here. Lexi Taylor not going to take that one, actually. He decides to put up a bit of a fight here and disobey the blue flags. But it was really when he was running second, was starting to catch Marchand for the lead, and he went a little bit wide at the hairpin and went off track and had to slow right down. That was, I think, the turning point for Blumschein's race, where he went from maybe being in the mix for victory and, you know, given his pace on the wets, perhaps he would have been overtaken by Trill ultimately. Anyways, we see Demolians now having a huge moment with just under 2 minutes left on the clock. Looks like he's kept it out of the wall, though, but he's another one that's got Le Mans wrong. And Yeah, is he cramping a little bit down the straight? Maybe he's tapped the wall somewhere, but he's really just got to hold on now. 30 seconds out of Yanis Bugiera then, so tense times for Demolians, but I think he should be able to hold on to this one.
Yeah, it's really, really close. I can't quite tell whether Demolians is crabbing or if it was just a camera offset at the end of the straight. It's really difficult to tell at the moment. If he has got a little bit of damage, it should be okay with the 30-second cushion he's got behind, as we do come on to what will be the final lap, I expect. Walton and Triller just coming through. Is that the exit of turn 1? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So a minute to go. So this will be the final lap. It'll be the checkered flag at the end here as the clock hits 0.
Yeah, and Walton Triller from Finland. He's had to wait quite a while for this first win since the Algarve, of course, missed round 2 at Fuji. Just missed out on the podium to Sobers, didn't he? With the wrong strat. Him and Sobers were the leaders of those who started on the wets and then had to change the drives at Monza. And of course, he got jumped by Sachin Sobers in the pits as well, so he got outsmarted in terms of the virtual energy being put on that car. But this time, he's put his experience to good use, has not put a foot wrong, and a watermark moment for Ferrari in the rain here at Sebring. Walton Triller is going to win then, and this is going to do his championship a load of good. Looks like, oh, is that Maxime Barbier? One of those Demolians trying to make sure he doesn't have to do another lap, as Bugiera now closest to win 7 seconds, but that was actually quite smart from Olivier Demolians. Saw the leader within about 15 seconds of him and thought, well, I can make my job a little bit easy here by giving myself one less lap to do, and it means I don't have to risk it on the fuel as well. So smart move by the Frenchman. But Walton Triller then, let's not call him a Triller the Hun or any silly puns here, but he is dominated in the end today after really managing our first Contender endurance race to perfection here at Sebring. Through the spray he comes into Sunset Bend then, and the yellow Ferrari is going to take its first win here in VMS Contender. Walton Triller then, this will put him up to second in the points. Round the final corner, goes right into the wall there, but it's too late to dent his challenge. He's going to win by 30 seconds there. An absolutely spectacular drive there by Walton Triller. Did everything right today. Sachin Sobers, he's going to take his best result yet. Third last time out of Monza. The rain fell again, and it fell absolutely into his lap as he fought his way through, took advantage of everyone else's mistakes. While others lost their heads, he kept his, and Sachin Sobers is going to end in second position here, ahead of Tobias Blumschein by 14 seconds. It's one that really got away for Blumschein, but nonetheless, he will take another podium then as Sobers celebrates the runners-up spot. But going one better in the GT3 class for the first time will be Marin Bessir. He was second in the first 2 races. He gambled on the wets at Monza and lost out dearly, falling down to 7th. But this time, he played it perfectly on the strategy, had a fantastic duel with Maciej Kasperzik and the pole setter Jeremy Leites, where he came on top with some fantastic moves. He had to really duel every step of the way, and now he's going to win by at least 8 seconds here in an absolutely forceful drive then. Marin Bessir, who is going to be the first, is he going to be our first McLaren to win in GT3 this season? I believe so, because it's only really been BMWs have won so far in Contender, oddly enough. Through the final corners, he comes now then, just a long straight and Sunset Bend to go for Marin Bessir, and he can sit back and enjoy this then. Kasperzik not close enough to challenge. First win for McLaren then, and all of France is going to be cheering Marin Bessir on, it feels like, in the chat then, as the windscreen wipers don't have to wait for too much longer then. Through the final corner he comes. He slows a little bit to a crawl here. Is he going to do a little celebratory weave as he crosses the line? Marin Bessir wins the GT3 class in the 100 minutes of Sebring. An absolutely fantastic performance from the Frenchman. Poland's Maciej Kasperzik is going to have to settle for the runners-up spot, but nonetheless, that keeps him in the top 3 in the championship. And then Lucas Korsch is going to keep his 4th position ahead of Jeremy Leites with a strong run to 3rd. Then he was a little bit in arrears, but nonetheless, did a solid drive today, I think, Lucas Korsch. But he would maybe have been hoping to get that Ferrari a little bit higher up the podium. But you've got to be in it to at least get the points, and that's exactly what he did today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a really brilliant drive from the top three in both classes here, whether it was through a race of attrition like it has been for Thomas Blumstein, or whether it was a race of almost complete cleanliness for Walton Triller and Sashin Sobers. It was really, really impressive performances in both classes here at Sebring.
Oh, a couple of comments in the chat saying Blumshine was declassed. It's showing Olivier Demolien's P3. We'll have to see when we get to the hypercar results then. Clulius Gamer says French P1 in DNFing. Okay. But it is a Frenchman that wins in GD3 for the first time this season. Oh no, Vasquez Simonian did win twice already, so it is the third time the Frenchman has won, but the first time that Marin Basia has won for McLaren, then 11 seconds then ahead of Masic Kasperzik. So actually, Kasperzik had a very slow final lap then, but nonetheless, a fantastic duel between the two of them together pretty much for the entire 100 minutes then of Sebring. But it's Kasperzik's second best. Lucas Korsch finishes third ahead of Gustav Schubert, getting his best result so far in fourth ahead of Jerome Mitral. Then our two non-finishers, Jeremy Leitas with that damage after starting on pole position. It's a case of what could have been for Jeremy. I think if it didn't rain, could have been a much better result for Jeremy Leitas. And then Rune Babeas with that big crash, taking himself and Ivan Chevalier out of the running. Meanwhile, here is your hypercar order. It is Walton Triller that takes his first victory of the season, the Finn, doing an absolutely spectacular job. From second on the grid, was it? Or was it third on the grid, wasn't it? Behind Paul Lepere. Then Sachin Sobers makes a spectacular recovery, stayed out of trouble to get second position, really did a good job in tricking dishes in the wet to finish 32 seconds down. Tobias Blumschein, he was really making big moves in the first part of the race. Bit of up and down day for him, but nonetheless, another podium to his credit will do his championship a world of good. Olivier Demoliens in the top four, despite a lot of scary moments for him in this race. Nearly binned it in the final, a couple of laps there, but nonetheless holds on to fourth from Yanis Bugiera, who's just 15 seconds behind him. Then is Kostas Melistas, the sole Toyota to get home in sixth, with Maxime Barbier and Lexi Taylor after horrible opening stints of the race, where they suffered huge damage, sticking with it and coming home seventh and eighth respectively, with Barbier doing a very, very good job in particular to keep it clean. Roman Marchand, sadly, and Ivan Chevalier, big crashes meant the two Toyotas did not get to the end. And Paul Lepere, that collision with Tobias Blumschein early on will be controversial. And Lepere, the Frenchman, is going to be absolutely fuming after this one, because that was a almost certain podium finish that slipped away through his fingers then.
So, yeah, I think...
Go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say...
You left and then came back in the middle of that, so I didn't know if you were still there.
Sorry, no, yeah, I just sat back down. I think what's really going to be tough for Lepere to accept there is that these results are going to see him drop down the order in the standings. It's not just this race that's going to be affected. He could see himself slip out of those promotion positions as it stands. Obviously, we do still have stewarding to go through for this race, so these final race standings are subject to change based on that. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Lepere to swallow for sure.
He should definitely still be ahead of Tobias Blumschein, because Paul Lepere, his best results are third, and second, top 3 out of 4 rounds, whereas Tobias Blumschein, fourth, second, and a third here today. So Blumschein will be close, but not quite ahead then, and Walton Triller will be ahead of both of them, of course, with first, second, and fourth, the results that he gets to keep to his name then. So all is not lost for Paul Lepere, I think, still just clinging on to third in that Hypercar Championship. Certainly, it's Hatrishki, the man we didn't see today, that everyone is expecting to get back on form when we come back in a week's time, I believe, for the next round. Another sprint round, this time at Spa-Francorchamps then, before we have round 6 at Bahrain the week after, and then Le Mans, our Enduro, another sprint race like we saw today, but this time at Circuit de la Sarthe. I just asked if anyone wants to do any interviews. Roman Marchand replies, "You want to hear me crying with a French accent?" I believe it sounds much like people crying in any other accent as well. I think tears are a somewhat universal language. Certainly a wet track today, and not just because of the rain, I think it's fair to say, Ollie.
Yeah, I think that really sums up how Romain Marchand's race went. Obviously, the mistake on his own whilst in the lead is I mean, that one's of his own making, but there are other incidents during that race that you could say weren't fully his fault, were possibly others' faults, and I expect there's going to be a few other drivers who are feeling in the same boat as Romain Marchand come the end of this race.
Still, though, he got a Toyota onto pole position. We didn't think we'd be saying that this year, did we? But
no, that is very, very true. That is very true.
So sounds like even though we have actually got the contender interview room finally working now, the last round at Monza, we had 3 people who wanted to talk to us. Sadly, we didn't have permission to drag them in, and we didn't think of telling them just to go to the pro interview room and then just dragging them in from there. But I guess it would have been dishonest, wouldn't it? But yeah, big shame then that we're not going to get the thoughts of our winner, Walter Natrilla, or Marin Basir, or any of our podium finishers then. It looks like... Paul Lopez says, Tobias interview, please, for a beautiful race. Well, Tobias is very popular. He always is one of the drivers that loves to be interviewed by us, but no sign of him so far. And I don't know about you, but after
I have a funny feeling.
I feel like we should probably wrap things up rather than waiting until the cows come home, because we'd be waiting a while, wouldn't we, Ollie? But before we sign off, though, lovely for you to join us for a first full commentary. It was certainly a big one. I'm glad to have you alongside me for 100 minutes of Sebring, though. But 3 races left to go in Contender, and of course, don't forget the Pro Championship. We've got the next round of that at Fuji this Sunday in a few days' time. So we certainly got that to look forward to, with Jenny Simčić looking to win 3 in a row. As is Seb Wunsch as well, who, of course, won the Prost 2 GT3 rounds. But it's very, very close between Wunsch and Prendergast. Just 2 points separate them in the overall standings, where Simčić also looking to pull clear of Mrocek and Hoyer in the Hypercar overall standings. Then, of course, there's the sprint standings, where Mrocek and Hoyer are equal in the lead there. So plenty to fight for in our main series. But Contender put on a fantastic show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really shows that just because these guys are not necessarily on the pace of the very front runners in Pro Series, they will put on just as good of a show and hold just as big of a fight for position as those guys do. And it was really great to see tonight. Whether those moves always end in the outcome that people want, maybe less so. But overall, a brilliant race here tonight, and that's certainly a busy one. I can understand why you're thankful to have me along. That would have been a lot of events to cover by yourself.
A very lonely Valentine's Day, to say the least. But anyway, but nonetheless, I think the people who had the best day were certainly Walter Natrilla winning for the first time in Hypercar, and Marin Basir doing the same in GT3. Great to see them finally break their duck. And they are going to really hope to go all the way in both championships. But I think that's all we got time for. Thank you very much. I've been Edward Hunter. Thank you very much to you, Ollie, for joining me in the commentary box, and to Nicolas Domino for controlling the broadcast. For Contender, we'll see you next week at Spa for another sprint race, much shorter encounter on that occasion. But for Pro, we'll see you at Fuji in 2 days' time on Sunday evening, where me and Braden will take you through the penultimate sprint round of the season as we build to the climax of that championship, the main series that all these Contender runners are going to be hoped to be part of next season. But thank you very much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the Valentine's Day 100 minutes of Sebring here tonight in the VMS Contender Series on Le Mans Ultimate. Bye for now.